So good evening all. So hope I am audible. So today we are celebrating Vivekananda Jayanti, National Youth Day. So on behalf of Clinical Pharmacology Subcommittee of APICON 2025, I welcome you all. And today's topic is very interesting. Spirituality, science and skill, the triple helix of holistic healing in clinical medicine. So we are really privileged to have with us Professor Jyotirmoy Pal, sir. So Professor Jyotirmoy Pal is the scientific chairperson of APICON 2025. And let me ask Professor Jyotirmoy Pal, sir, to introduce the theme and objectives of the event and start today's session. Over to Professor Jyotirmoy Pal, sir.
Thank you. Today is a very auspicious day. It's the birthday of Swami Vivekananda, the spiritual leader of India. Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda and Rabindranath Tagore means soul of India. And he's not a spiritual leader. Basically, to Swami Vivekananda, spirituality means in one hand patriotism, in one hand service to the mankind. So that is why we doctors should be inspired with the works of Swami Vivekananda, because we doctor is serve for the mankind. And this service is basically is the spirituality. So spirituality and service to the mankind is not separable. So this session, what the organizer have planned, very relevant to this day, and I hope every doctor will be motivated with the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. Thank you. Over to organizers.
Thank you, sir. Today, this event is also endorsed by Association of Clinical Pharmacologists and Indian Pharmacological Society of India. So we have our President of Association of Clinical Pharmacologists, Professor Shantanu Tripathi. May I request Professor Shantanu Tripathi, sir, to have his introductory comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shambho. It's a privilege and it's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. And it's a great occasion. We are here to actually celebrate the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda. And a personality in not only in India, in the whole world, who doesn't need any introduction, in fact, has been for centuries, has been an inspiration to the youths of the whole world. And in any walk of life, we are actually motivated by the spirit and by the messages that has been propagated by Swamiji. And we are happy that we have taken up this theme in the area of healthcare, whereby, as we know, the doctors are dedicated in rendering service to the mankind, which otherwise goes very well with the lifelong motive of Swamiji. And thereby I feel that this is a great occasion. We are commemorating Swamiji's life and messages to us, to the society. And I hope that the deliberations today will be very relevant to the profession of medicine and all healthcare providers closely associated with and committed to this service to the mankind. And from the Association of Clinical Pharmacologists of India, we all join hands with the learned members of the Association of Physicians of India to make the not only this evening's program, but also the national conference that's going to happen, to wishing it a great success. And we all are there to enjoy this evening's program. Thank you very much. Wish you a very nice proceedings. Over.
Thank you very much, sir, for your important words. And let us now, for 5 minutes, we'll pray, because today is Swami Vivekananda's birthday and we are celebrating that. May I request our technical team to play that Sanskrit prayer, and we will revisit the wisdom of Swami Vivekananda.
Sure, sir.
Thank you. Pranam to Swami Vivekananda. Let's start today's scientific discussion. And we are really delighted to have with us our first speaker, who needs no introduction to this audience. He is a teacher of teachers, professor of professors. So we have with us Padma Shri Shashank R. Joshi, sir. So without wasting any time, we all are keen to learn from Professor Shashank Joshi, sir. So over to Joshi, sir.
Am I audible? And are my slides visible?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
First of all, my pranam to Swami Vivekananda. Today we are here for a youth day. I have to thank Professor Shambho Samazdar for constantly trying to instill, ancient wisdom and modern medicine. And he told me to talk on a subject very close to my heart and close to his heart, which is spirituality and health, the forgotten connection. I don't have any duality or conflict of interest for this talk, except that me and Shambho do publish some work together. So before I go into the subject domain, there is a lot of neurobiology and neuroendocrinology and neuroimaging of spirituality and brain. And one of the classic subjects is brain scans of Buddhist monks who practice meditation in scanner. They showed significant changes in cerebral blood flow during meditation. And during meditation, there was significant increase in activity of frontal lobe, focusing on attention and concentration. And this increase in activity of frontal lobe significantly correlated with decrease in the activity in the left superior parietal lobe, which is involved in orientation in time and place. So, when I'm talking of spirituality and meditation, there is biology and science and evidence base to back it up with documentation. And this is the documentation of the frontal lobe activity of Buddhist monk meditating. And you can see very clearly the increase in the cerebral blood flow. And here you can see that the decrease in the cerebral blood flow during meditation in Buddhist monks meditating. So there is documented evidence, and this is not new evidence. This is evidence almost 22, 23 years old. So spirituality has emerged as a concept in healthcare literature, and the streams of thought about spirituality are different. For example, for theologians, for dogmatists, for philosophers, for traditionalists or folk traditionalists, for social scientists, but we are all clinicians. So clearly, a lot of people mix spirituality with religion. And spirituality in Latin means to breathe. And breathe is something which is the essence of yoga. And religion from Latin means to bind. So if you look at, one is a breathing, other one is to bind, all are connected with a context of piety or concentration. So the two common views of relationship between spirituality to religion are in these two boxes summarized. And therefore there is a spiritual history taking. And this is from the author of Fika assessment, which I will come back to a little later, that I see spirituality which allows a person to experience transcendent meaning of life. It's often expressed as a relationship with God, but it could be also with nature, with art, with music, with family, community. Whatever beliefs and values give a person a sense of meaning and purpose in life. Patients learn to cope up and understand their suffering through their spiritual belief or a spiritual dimension in their lives. So this is a construct on which the entire biological basis for inclusion of WHO of spiritual health really came about. So as I told you, the Fika framework is nothing but spiritual history taking, which is faith, importance, community, and address. These are the key components in any spiritual history. And therefore, when we understand this, faith is, do you consider yourself spiritual or religious? Importance is how spiritual beliefs influence your health. Communities, are you a part of a commune or a spiritual community or a religious community? And address is, how do we address your specific spiritual needs? So remember that when you look at role of spirituality in a patient's life, spiritual history is integral in understanding, and we need to understand this context very clearly. So when you want to identify spiritual needs to history taking, a spiritual history is a tool to discern. It is the patient's existential and spiritual concerns, example, questioning, faith, search of meaning, coping mechanisms, and inner source of strength when they are aggrieved with pain or cancer or chronic illnesses, openness to faith-based interventions like counseling, which often work like CBT, including prayer. Prayer is a form of a cognitive behavioral therapy now, people think. And then the questions which are key to ask is what helps you to go through tough times? What meaning does it have through illness hold for you? And what are your hopes and fears for the future? So this is how we contextualize it. So clearly, we now understand that spirituality has emerged as a character in healthcare literature because of inclusivity and diversity. The interest is going beyond the limits of religion. The focus is here and now, individual and human experiences. Focus is a pragmatic view of coping, and it is contextualized with health, and some degree of ambiguity may still exist. So when people try to connect a religion affecting physical health, this model and slide is very common, where religion or spirituality, mental health, social support, and health behavior impact stress hormones, immunology, autonomic nervous system, disease detection and compliance, and high risk behaviors, which eventually lead to either accidents or sexually transmitted diseases or diseases of bowel, gut, liver or lung, stroke, hypertension, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, or infection. I am moving gears because today is Vivekananda Day, and I am going to go through the journey of our ancient scriptures and how our ancient scriptures have really sort of given us a basis for yoga. So when we look at yoga and origins of yoga and the Vedic origins of yoga, it is linking Upanishads to yoga. Yoking first the mind is the idea of yoga, which is a control of the lower mind, such as Yoga Sutras, and the awakening of higher intelligence. So that is how our Rishi Munis were integrating yoga, and they decided to yoga it. In fact, the Sir Aurobindo very nicely said that if you need to really ascend the ladder of self-realization, you will need to be going through formulas which are mindfulness and use and tap various episodes of Vedic practices. So we have evolved and integrated into Upanishads and classic yoga. So we have transited from ritualistic Vedic practices to philosophical insights of Upanishads, and from there gave the birth of concepts of self, reality, and liberation. And these are actually best collated by sage Patanjali, who really put out and gave the first encyclopedia of the classic yoga system. Obviously, the sages and our saints passed our entire spiritual practices through word of mouth, and inscriptions were rare, and tapping of the inscriptions and understanding of the inscriptions were further rare. So fundamentally, it was sage Patanjali who compiled Yoga Sutras. His work is a compilation of earlier traditions, connecting them to a system of yogic philosophy. So if you look at Veda Raksham, and if you look at the tree of Veda Raksham, we have the Atharveda, through which the birth of Ayurveda came in, and the Upanishad, through which the yogic philosophy was born. It was based on very simple constructs of the 5 elements: air, space, fire, water, and earth. And the dosha is the physical constitution, guna is the mental constitution. The dosha is vata, pitta, and kapha, and the guna is rajasa, sattva, and tamasa. And based on the disorders of dosha and guna, physical or mental, disorders evolved. And then solutions came in. And the solutions came in through 4 ways. First, of course, is Ashtanga Yoga, the practice of 8 limbs of yoga. Then Ahara, yogic diet recommendations. Then Vichara, which is behavior and cognitive modifications as per traditional understanding. And Vihara, which is lifestyle modifications, including sleep and physical activity, to harmonize biorhythms. So if you look at the Ashtanga Yoga, Ahara, vichar, and vihar. That's a holistic program for mental well-being and overall health and balancing the states of doshas and gunas, which was inscribed by our ancestors. So fundamentally, the Panchakoksha model of correlation of dosha and guna is a layered model, layer by layer. The outermost layer being the physical layer, the Anamaya. Then is the energy layer, which is the Pranamaya. Then is the mind layer, which is Manomaya. Then is the intellectual layer, the Vinamaya. And then there is a layer of bliss, the Anandamaya. In fact, recently I wrote a speaking tree in Times of India on the bliss technology and bliss. So ultimately, we are moving towards Ananda, which is bliss. We have Vinay, Vijay, which is intellect. We have Manomaya, which is mind. We have Pranamaya, which is energy. And we have Anandamaya, which is physical layer. And if you look at the Anandamaya Kosha, the dosha, the movement is Vatta, Pitta is metabolism, Kapha is lubrication. If you look at the Manomaya Kosha or the Gunas, which is the second layer, you can clearly see the third layer, sorry. It is Sattva, which is calmness, Rajasa, which is restlessness, and Tamasa, which is lethargy. And that is how evolution of the entire Panchakoksha model of dosha and guna correlation has occurred. So when we look at the holistic essence of Vedic medicine, and when we look at the introduction of Vedic medicine as an ancient system of healthcare, it is a balance between body, mind, and spirit. And it is not just absence of disease. And therefore, when we are looking at a concept of health, it is exactly what the WHO defines, that it is a state of complete physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And therefore, the aim of Vedic medicine is to prevent illnesses, promote longevity, and nurture individuals' inherent healing capabilities. And that is something which we need to recognize. And it is best understood by the chariot analogy of the Katha Upanishad. In fact, the Katha Upanishad has this entire chariot analogy, which will give you a beautiful conceptualization of this entire role. And if you look at the chariot, and I'll come back to the previous slide, which is based on the Katha Upanishad. And if you understand this, you will understand a lot. So if you look at Atman, which is consciousness, if you look at higher intellect, which is Buddhi, if you look at mind, which is Manas, and if you look at the senses, which are Indriyas, and then if you come back on the chariot analogy, body is a chariot, senses are the horses, mind are the reins, intellect is a charioteer, passenger is the higher self or Atman. And if you look at the relationship and distinction between physical body or chariot and the higher self or pure consciousness, which is Atman, and if you look at the importance of controlling senses or horses through mind or reins, guided by intellect, the charioteer, to achieve the psychological well-being and spiritual growth. And this was all actually put out by our ancestors and our sages and saints. In fact, we discovered zero, Aryabhatta discovered zero, and the number philosophy is called the Sankhya philosophy. And in that, there are two independent realities, the Purusha or the self and the Prakriti, which is matter. And therefore, achieving the union with self, with the higher consciousness, is the key goal. And this is best illustrated in this Katha Upanishad model of the chariot. Moving gears from there, Yoga also has yoga bioenergetics. And we also know the chakra philosophy. Just like we know the Sankhya philosophy, we know the chakras. And chakras are nothing but activation of the various Kundalini energies. Is there a biological basis for the bioenergetic chakras? If you look at energy balance, which we understand today in the energy kinetics, it is total energy intake, total energy expenditure. And if you look at the Kundalini energy states, the dormant state has limited spiritual understanding, where perceptions are grounded to mundane and selfish views. The aroused Kundalini state has a temporarily spiritual insight and energy lacking stability. The awakened state is a stable state of transformation of consciousness and progressive spiritual realization. So if you look at what a yogi is trying to achieve, it is trying to awaken the Kundalini energy to achieve Kaivalya. Kaivalya is freedom. And from the inner self or Atman to control the body's energy centers or the chakras and senses. So the whole idea is to, if you look at, even I live from the city of Mumbai, one of the top yoga institutes is at Santa Cruz, the other one is at Kaivalya Dham. Kaivalya Dham is nothing but freedom from Atman so that you can control your body energy centers or the chakras and balance them out. So fundamentally, a focus of a yogi is not just physical strength or athletic abilities, but to control the bodies, to develop Atman through abstinence, yamas, purity, moderation, and modesties, which is niyama, and integrate the lifestyle of diet and physical activity principles based on yamas and niyamas, which are rules and rituals. And if you do this practice systematically, you will have enhanced vitality, improved perception of physical conditioning, social functioning, quality of life, and also sometimes when the yogi is evolving, they have exceptional physical abilities like muscular flexibility, strength, stress control when they practice postures or asanas. So there is science behind all this, and we should not dismiss it. For example, we can understand energy expenditure through yogic practices. We know that there is total energy expenditure, TEE. We know there is resting energy expected, REE. We know there is basal energy expenditure, BEE. And there are metabolic indicators and measurements used to study body's energy balance and control body weight. And the highlighting the gap in research of TEE during Kundalini energy activation is something which we are researching in. In fact, we know what is Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is asanas, pranayama, and dhyana. And we can actually measure the physical intensity of Hatha Yoga in terms of VO2 max and metabolic equivalents of METs. And if you look at comparative MET values of Hatha Yoga practices against physical activities like walking, jogging, and cycling, we can have protocols in which there are low intensity common Hatha Yoga protocols which are limited cardiovascular benefits. You can improve physical performance, hemodynamic function with increased cardiorespiratory reserve with Hatha Yoga. And you can also do local muscular adaptation for some physically intense asanas. We can actually do breathing exercise or pranayamas, and psychophysiological control or concentration also can be achieved from the same. So remember, asanas are not just postures. Yes, they are physical postures designed to purify body, to improve health and promote spiritual growth. But if you look at the summary of evidence-based benefits, they improve flexibility, they improve muscle strength and tone, they enhance respiratory and cardiovascular health, they improve athletic performance, and they protect us from injury. So am I talking off my hat, or is there something genuine about yoga? Is it evidence-based or is it a placebo? Well, this is a systematic review and meta-analysis of role of yoga in management of chronic diseases. And you can clearly see the odds ratio here of published literature to show that yoga improves exercise capacity, and yoga clearly has documentary evidence to improve health-related quality of life. So the yoga has an impact on exercise capacity and health-related quality of life in chronic diseases. So can yoga improve, I'm an endocrinologist, improve glycemic control and other health parameters in pre-diabetic states? And this is a systematic review and meta-analysis of the same. That meta-analysis uncovered the improvements in glycemic control, lipid profile, and various populations in the pre-diabetic populations. And this is something which we work on systematically. That was about asanas. What about breathing techniques for vital energy or pranayamas? Well, we know there is focus control in breath, which is vital life energy, and improved respiratory functions, which are clearly documented to improve stress and anxiety. And we clearly recognize that when you do the pranayama, you are activating the slowly adapting stress receptors, generating inhibitory impulses on neural tissue, synchronizing the tissue, decreasing the action potential, and increasing the parasympathetic dominance. The whole idea of yoga, we are living in a sympathetic world. We are hyper and stressed out. We need to increase our parasympathetic tone and dominance. And therefore, through pranayama, you can increase your parasympathetic dominance, decrease the blood pressure, heart rate, and oxygen consumption. And not only that, by doing pranayama, you're stretching the fibroblasts surrounding the lungs. You are generating a hyperpolarization current. You are again synchronizing the neural tissue, including hypothalamus and brainstem, and the resting membrane potential polarity in the surrounding tissue, decreasing metabolic activity. So ultimately, pranayama is promoting parasympathetic dominance. The final component, first was asanas, then is pranayamas, and finally is meditation. cultivating inner peace through meditation, which is dhyana. Dhyana is a meditative practice aimed at developing deep concentration and a state of profound, peaceful stillness and insight. And summary of evidence worldwide published literature shows that meditation directly impacts mental health, including reduction of stress, anxiety, depression, improvements of attention, memory, and emotional regulation. In fact, this is a systematic review of meditative therapies which improve the sleep quality and fatigue, as well as have antidepressive effects, especially in people who have mental health disorders. And they improve attention, awareness, point of focus, and self-transcendence. This is an excellent review. Let me look at fasting. Every religion has fasting. Ramadan fasting will come up in March. Lent fasting will come out in the Catholics. So every religion has fasting. And Jain fasting is Parushan. And in India, in Hindu tradition, we also have the modern fasting. But what has got more popular today is intermittent fasting. Can we align modern intermittent fasting with Indian tradition? You know that intermittent fasting is a health trend. It's a populist trend. Evidence base is not so great. It's cycling between periods of eating and fasting for weight management, metabolic health, and longevity. Remember, traditional Indian practice is to have dinner before sunset to modulate circadian rhythm and have benefits of digestion, sleep quality, and detoxification process. It is connecting the times of meal of circadian biology, highlighting how early dinner practices align with optimal metabolic physical health akin to principles of fasting. So this is a meta-analysis of intermittent fasting compared with non-intervention diet caloric restriction. And you can see intermittent fasting showed less benefit compared to eating less or caloric restriction. And this is the data on the same. Yesterday was day before yesterday, or yesterday was Vaikunt Ekadashi, day before yesterday. And Ekadashi is a traditional Indian fasting practice on the 11th day of the lunar cycle. This is again a practice for spiritual significance and its role for physical and mental detoxification. There are clear documented benefits that if you periodically fast, for example, every 11th day of the month, there is improved autophagy, enhanced metabolic flexibility, and mental clarity. It has parallels from intermittent fasting research findings. And therefore, some of the cultural practices which are traditional underscore the holistic approach for health and well-being. And some of the ancient practices predate and support modern dietary trends like intermittent fasting, which are coming up. Finally, we are all wanting to live long and we all want to be happy. And therefore, we are what we eat. And Sattvic diet is one such concept. It's a diet which increases energy, happiness, calmness, and mental clarity with promoting health and longevity. In fact, in the Mahanarayana Upanishad, they say that human beings, if they follow Sattvic principles of life, they should live for 100 to 150 years with spirituality. And the saint diets are fresh, juicy foods which are nutritious and tasty, like fresh fruits and vegetables, sprouted grains, roots and tubers, nuts, cow milk, curd, and honey. And therefore, this is also similar to the modern prudent dietary pattern, improving overall mental well-being and physical well-being and spiritual progress. The Rajasic diet is fueling passion and activity. It can stimulate emotions of jealousy, anger, selfishness. It is recommended for leaders and fighters with potential to excite and boost confidence and intelligence. It's often bitter, tart, spicy, hot, dry, intended to overstimulate body and mind. It has white sugar, radishes, fried food, and stimulating beverages. It may cause increase in intelligence, but also negative emotions and fantasies. And finally, is the tamasic diet contributing to laziness and pessimism. And this is something which may be detrimental to health and spiritual progress. It has stale foods, undercooked foods, overly fried foods, high in fat, meats from tamed animals, onions and mushrooms, and stimulants. And some of them may enhance anger, criminal tendencies, impede spiritual growth, and lower life expectancy. Even our food had a guna-based food classification. For example, Sattvic had the highest micronutrient density, promoting clarity and calmness. Rajasic had moderate micronutrient density, stimulating action and passion. And Tamasic had lowest micronutrient density, stimulating or inducing lethargy and negativity. If you look at nutritional content composition, the fiber content was similar to all types, 14 milligram per kilocalorie. But the fat content was 18% for Sattvic 42% for Rajasic, 72% for Tamasic. If you look at daily intake, the Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic had their own differences. So when we correlate the overall micronutrients, Sattvic diet had a high correlation, Rajasic had correlation with thiamine, Tamasic was linked to zinc and iron and anxiety, and therefore there is evidence to show, which is published evidence, that Sattvic foods offer superior health benefits, while recommended diet plan focusing reducing Tamasic and Rajasic foods while increasing the Sattvic intake improved well-being. So if you look at nourishing health through Vedic dietary practices, again you can see the Ahara concept is to balance doshas. And also remember that we have Ritucharya, which I have not collated here in my slide, but Ritucharya means seasonal foods. Because India is a fasting and feasting country, and eating seasonally and consuming food according to one's doshic constitution, it has significance on mindful eating. And this is all documented and well. What about herbs? And is there science on herbs? Because you are all clinical pharmacologists also, and obviously some of the herbs which are used in Vedic practices had some purported functional food benefits, like ashwagandha for stress relief, turmeric for inflammation, and they were prescribed based on the Prakruti and Vikruti. So if somebody's constitution of Prakruti was Vata, Pitta or Kapha, based on that, whatever is the Vikruti, which is the imbalance, you can have a personalized approach or a precise approach to Vedic medicine. Well, we all know about curcumin. It can improve cognitive function. It can have anti-inflammatory roles. And we are doing more and more, science around this functional food. We collated all the literature of therapeutic role of yoga in type 2 diabetes some time back. We know that the postures, the Surya Namaskars, the Kapalbhatis, the Shuddhi Kriyas, the cleansing, each one of them has a documented impact. And we reviewed this entire literature. So remember that yogic practice will impact behavior, psychology, and physiology, and will have a role in prevention of diseases. And even modern guidelines, including ADA, ESD, or API, now incorporate yoga as a part of the lifestyle approach. So clearly, I mean, I can go on and on speaking, but chapter 2, verse 48 of Bhagavad Gita very clearly said, and I will not go into the Sanskritization of that be steadfast in performance of your duty, O Arjun, abandoning attachment to success and failure, and try to achieve equanimity, which is yoga. And that's exactly what Swami Vivekananda practiced, which was equanimity. And he propagated without fear, without malice, our ancient Indian tradition, values, and religion across the world. His iconic Chicago address is very well known, and we need to recognize that we need to tap and do more and more science and evidence from our ancient Vedic medicine in a modern evidence-based way, so that we can understand better and we can adapt it, because we have all a common goal, which is we want to be free for wellness, and we should move towards wellness, and we need to improve the lifespan, we need to improve longevity. But remember, outcomes related to medicine are not only about health outcomes. Happiness outcomes are as important as health outcomes. And it is important that Vivekananda's teachings, Swami Vivekananda's teachings clearly teach us that we need equanimity, we need the poise, we need happiness and health. And I think we should tap our old ancient Vedic practices and connect them. And probably that is the way we can have a spiritual dimension to health. And some of these practices are very useful as adjuncts in our lifestyle medication. I do not propagate that these systems of medicine will replace modern systems of medicine, but they are perfectly, if they are integrated with the modern system of medicine, we can actually have happier and healthy lives. And we can even see, look at prevention, we can look at remission, we can look at modulation of overall health. Thank you so much, Shambho, for calling this entire spirituality, science, and skill program for holistic healing. And I know that it is on the eve of the Mahakumbh Mela, which is coming up. And we are celebrating the National Youth Day for the Vivekananda Jayanti. So thank you so much. And I must thank Dr. Jyotirmay Paul and the API, the Indian Pharmacological Society, and the Association of Clinical Pharmacologists for having me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again for your wisdom. We are really enlightened with your talk. And I think our delegates who are there, we have almost more than 150 delegates who are listening to us. They're also very much happy and got different types of points to ponder. And thank you, sir. So let's move towards the next session, and we will take some question at the end, and we have a panel discussion with esteemed panelists too. So next topic is actually lessons from Bhagavad Gita for physicians. And just this is one topic very core to my heart. And every time when we touch Bhagavad Gita through our mind, through our eyes, we get some new informations. Same sloka can be interpreted uh, in a different way. So that is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. I think we all acknowledge its dynamicity. And let's start today's discussion. And I think we all face this when we are in our clinic. Our patient enters into the clinic. They are about to tell something to us. They are about to get something from us so that their suffering can be tackled. So just to think the chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, when the Arjuna, he became restless and he was seeking the help from Krishna. So in the entire chapter 1, what we can find, there is Arjuna who is actually, you can see the symptoms of Arjuna, the signs of Arjuna, that makes just like one panic patient, one anxiety patient, one who enters inside our clinic and telling us that my whole body shudders, my hairs is standing on end, my limbs are giving away, my mouth is drying up. So a higher sympathetic nervous system activity is there. And in whole chapter 1, Krishna was not telling anything. So if we go by the different slokas of chapter 1, we can understand that that is from the end of Arjuna, who is telling these are my problem and how to overcome that. And Krishna was just listening to Arjuna. Just like physicians, when we sit in our chair, we ask, we listen our patient, the history in a detailed way, in a minute way. So with that, we start today's conversation. And when we talk about Bhagavad Gita, what after chapter 1, Sri Krishna did, that is to let Arjuna know about what he is actually. So how that can be done? That E need to be go away so that we can overcome our ego, and which is actually covering up us, which is actually disguising us, not understanding who am I by this ego. And that is why, as Joshi sir was mentioning, that we need to abandon the attachment of both success and failure, and then that equanimity, that state of equanimity to reach is essential. Then we will call be as yogi. And for yogi, when we talk about yoga, that means addition. And when we talk about addition, again, this is one thing which again I learned from Professor Shashank Joshi sir, and this is one disclaimer. Many things we will discuss maybe for next 15 or 20 minutes. I am totally devoted because my spiritual guru is also Professor Shashank Joshi sir. Every day I learn from him. Yes, I have my late grandfather, late Nirmalendu Shamasdar. From his different literature, I had gained something. So when we talk about yoga, that means addition, we are making multiple I. So we become we, and then we can convert illness to wellness. And that is the essence of Bhagavad Gita. That Bhagavad Gita actually tells us how we can become really we, how our illness can be transformed to wellness. So this was one case study we had published in IJDDC, where we had discussed one case where a young boy who was suffering from type 1 diabetes, patient of ours, was taking basal bolus insulin. And finally, due to some religious leaders' advice, he had stopped taking insulin for 6 months and landed up with diabetic ketoacidosis, admitted in hospital, recovered. Once again, he came back to us. That is the time when we need to follow the principle of equanimity. This is not that right time to abuse patient, to argue with patient. We need to understand the spiritual belief of the patient, and according to that we need to customize, we need to make them understood why insulin is the life for you. So again, when we talk about Bhagavad Gita, the beautiful sloka from chapter 6, verse 30, which teaches us, for those who see me everywhere and see all things in me, I am never lost, nor are they ever lost to me. So this actually tells us about the empathy, interconnectedness of all being. And I think this is one of the very key concepts of holistic healthcare. And if we have this type of concept, then we can foster compassionate, empathetic care, and we can also, with this, enhance the patient trust and adherence to therapy. We'll also discuss a few cases of COVID-19 which we had came across. We take one case here. Type 1 diabetes patient who was being admitted with diabetic ketoacidosis again. Thus SpO2 was 78%, CVG 564. So admitted in critical care, immediately intubated, central line done in emergency. So intubation and central line done in emergency in that time of COVID, you can think how proactive was the healthcare providers, and the management started. Next day, immediately the HSCT thorax came, the Cora score was 4, COVID-19 report not came that time. But what happened after 3 days when COVID-19 report came, it was positive. Now, suddenly that patient's father had slapped the treating doctor and blaming the hospital, creating some thing in that hospital, and they're telling this hospital is responsible for COVID-19 infection. But what is important here again, yes, it is very difficult to sometimes cope up with this type of situations. But again, chapter 2, verse 6 tells us, Dukkhe shunut bignomana, Shukheshu vigata spriha, bita raga bhaya krodha, sthitodhi muni uchvate. I think our teachers always taught us how to become steady, because this type of happenings happened every times, many days in our clinic also. We have to face that. But again, if we follow the principles of yoga, the equanimity, we can overcome these issues. So finally, what happened to that boy? He was discharged after 12 days in stable condition. At that time, the father was trying to catch the feet of the doctor, but the doctor stopped him immediately, but greeted with a gentle namaste. So again, even they are praising us, our teachers again taught us that activities do not taint me, nor do I desire the fruits of action. One who knows me in this way, never bound by the karmic reactions of the world. So that activity, we need to withdraw ourselves from the fruits of those, like when the father is going to catch our feet. So we need to avoid that too. So again, this is a very interesting transformation. While we we visit Gita, I think two personality we need to remind. One is great Lord Shankaracharya, and another is, obviously, today we are discussing about Swami Vivekananda. They explain Gita very easily to us. So this was an incident when Shankaracharya was traveling towards Kashi Vishwanath temple, and suddenly he saw some Chandal was in between the path of the mandir. So he stopped and he told that Chandal, "Hey, please go away from my path. Why are you standing here?" That time the Chandal asked Shankaracharya, "Who will be shifted? You are telling me? Who is this me? You want my body to go from your path? Or what you want?" That time Shankaracharya understand who is actually that Chandal was. So he was Shiva. So that time, this beautiful sloka that had been prepared by Lord Shankaracharya, the Nirvanastakam, na punnang na papang na shaukham na dukkham na mantro na tirtha na veda na yagya ahang bhojanang naiva bhojyang na bhoktva chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. So the beautiful last line that has been translated by Swami Vivekananda, "I am neither the act of enjoying, the enjoyable, nor the enjoyer. I am existence absolute, knowledge absolute, bliss absolute. I am He, I am He, Shivoham, Shivoham." A few days back, few days after, what happened? Again, the Shankaracharya was traveling to some different path, and there was one corpse. And that corpse, just beside that corpse, one lady was crying, as if that lady was the wife of that corpse. Now Shankaracharya again in that path asked that lady, "Oh mother, please give me some path, I want to go." Then the lady suddenly told Shankara, "Why are you telling me to move away from your path? You can tell that corpse You can tell that corpse to go away. Now Shankaracharya again, he was astonished. Now he reminds that, okay, so I was talking about Shivoham, Shivoham. So I was actually ignoring the existence of Prakriti. So it is not about only sheep. We need to respect Prakriti also. So that time, again, another beautiful stotra written by Shankaracharya, that is Bhavannashtakam. So najanami punnang, najanami tirthang, najanami mukting layang ba kadachit, najanami bhakting bratang bapi mata, gatistang gatistvang tameka bhavani. So same meaning, and we need to acknowledge the role of Prakriti here. We are really delighted. By the guidance of Professor Shashank Joshi sir, we had published, this has been accepted in Journal of Medical Evidence. We had given this story that how this ancient wisdom integrate with modern biology, especially when we talk about our mitochondrial inheritance from the mothers. And if we again go back when mitochondria was something separate cell, and actually it becomes endogenous organ after some times of evolution. So we can share this later with all of you. Now coming to again, when we talk about Gita, this is a very, I think many of our Bengali friends who know this, that you will be nearer to heaven through football than through study of Gita. And that is why many times our some of our friends also told, don't read Gita, rather play football. But today, as we are discussing about Gita, let's elaborate what actually Swami Vivekananda told. First of all, our young men must be strong. Religion will come afterwards. Be strong, my young friends. That is my advice to you. You will be nearer to heaven through football than through the study of Gita. These are bold words, but I have to say them, for I love you. I know where the shoe pinches. I have gained a little experience. You will understand the Gita better with your biceps, your muscles a little stronger. So you will understand the mighty genius and the mighty strength of Krishna better with a little strong blood in you. You will understand the Upanishad better and the glory of Atma when your body stands firm upon your feet and you feel like men. Thus, we have to apply this to our needs. So, yes, we need to play football. We need to have a good physical health. But at the same time, we need to have a good mental health, good social health, and good spiritual health. And that is why he always told us to grow, not only by our physical health, but also by our mental, social, and spiritual health. I think this is one of the very interesting drawing by him. This is the logo of Ramakrishna Mission, which is actually drawn by Swami Vivekananda. We can see here this wavy water. This wavy waters actually are symbolic of our karma. Then we can see this lotus. It is for bhakti. Then a rising sun, which is a sun of jnana, knowledge. And finally, this Sharpa, the snake, this encircling serpent is indicative actually of Kundalini Shakti. This is the indicative of yoga. And when we can have all this, the Gyan, Bhakti, and Karma, along with yoga, the attention, then we can see that swan in the picture. And that swan in the picture stands for Paramatma. So when we talk about yoga, that is the power of focus or attention or concentration. And when we combined power of yoga with karma, gyan, and bhakti, which is obtained from Gita, then we ultimately see ourselves. We can understand who am I, and we can visualize Paramatma. Yes, this attention is very critical. This encircling serpent is very important figure in this picture. And that is why every time when Vivekananda told us, he emphasized the power of concentration. And when we talk about maximizing our resources, which are the most important resources for us, attention, time, and energy. So attention should be taken as the primary commodity. It emphasizes its nature as the most valuable resource. Yes, the importance of time is there. It is also a crucial asset. Energy. We need to also recognize the energy as a vital component of our resource. Then we need to isolate also from other distractions. Detach from the outer world sometimes for better focus. Prevent self-scatter too. And when we talk about detachment, we need to understand this gentleman vision. What is that? This is the cobra's gauge. They have a precision focus on the prey. So we also should have a laser-like precision. And that is the initial step of focusing attention. And that has been echoed in various different chapters of Gita. Then, not only that precision, we need to steadfast that guarding, maintain the focus, remain vigilant and poised. Then selective isolation, shut out its surroundings. That is the final step of deep focus. And I think this was a very interesting statement, an important statement by Mihaly, who is a very renowned psychologist. Most enjoyable activities are not natural. They demand an effort that initially one is reluctant to make, but once the interaction starts to provide some feedback to the person's skills, it usually begins to be intrinsically rewarding. What is that? Yes, at the beginning, you always feel that doing Facebook, scrolling some pictures, that is some enjoyable activities. But when you stop doing that, Facebook, you will maybe 30 minutes you had done that. But after 30 minutes, what you will feel? You will feel, oh, I had lost my 30 minutes time. Maximum of us will think that. But at the same time, if you devote 30 minutes to read something good, I think that will carry forward for next 5 days, 10 days, and you will feel that, yes, I had done something good. Also, he had mentioned the best moments in our lives are not in passive, receptive, and relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Again, just think this statement and we can easily see how this statement is true and why attention is very critical. I think many of us are fortunate to witness this innings of 241. And what we can see from this heat map of his strokes, there is no cover drive. But we know that Sachin Tendulkar is famous for his cover drive too. What happened then? for last 3 tests, he was being out, bolded while doing cover drive. So we had corrected him. So just think the concentration of this great legend. So that is the power of focused attention. We need to also apply full attention to all tasks, regardless of their nature or importance. It could be some chit-chatting with some friend, but in that chit-chatting too, our spiritual leaders, they are telling that we need to be attentive in that chit-chat too, so that the attention become a habit to us. So Swami Vivekananda again emphasis on disciplined attention, the concept of the mind forming habits based on how we use it, the potential pitfalls of letting the mind wander without focus, and when difficulties in focusing if the habit of inattention is formed. So reinforce the idea that keeping the mind under full attention in all activities is crucial for developing a disciplined and focused mindset. And when we talk about attention in quality of life, so we need to understand the attachment and detachment in education, then determining the life quality, how the subject and intensify of our thoughts shape our life experience, how we can compare 1 hour of leisurely browsing on Facebook with reading an engaging academic journal article. And we can also discuss this case study of a cancer patient, when a story of cancer patient who improved internal quality of life by focusing on writing. So someone told, yes, you have cancer, so everything will be finished by 6 months, quality of life hampered. But if for 6 months you take a responsibility of publishing 3 or 4 articles, so that will improve your quality of life. So that is very important, and that is the benefit of attention. And every corner of Gita is telling us, teaching us about attention. So transforming mindset with mindful attention, mind's power to reshape a reality. Again, John Milton told, the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. And we know the story of that monkey who is going up and down to that ladder. So how we can control that, control our mind. So this is a very interesting book by Nathaniel Branden, 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. How to raise your self-esteem: living consciously, accepting yourself, self-responsibility. And when we are talking about accepting yourself, again, this great gentleman, Swami Vivekananda, told, this is a very famous quote, he is an atheist who does not believe in himself. So we need to believe ourselves. We need to be self-assertive. But at the same time, our communication should be honest, open. We need to be prepared for rejection, non-acceptance, but we should avoid manipulation and aggression. Living purposefully, and finally, the personal integrity. When we talk about integrity, when we talk about ethics, that is a multiplied product of 2M, materialism and morality. But self-esteem is not all. Ravana has self-esteem. You just go through the characters of this self-esteem, Ravana matching to that self-esteem. But what Ravana did not have? The selflessness, which is also the character of Rama. So Ram has 6 pillars of this self-esteem plus selflessness. And that makes Ramchandra as a Rama. We still worship Rama. So that is the importance of selflessness. So finally, when we are talking today, just one day before Mahakumbh, the spirituality, science, and skill. This year, this January 2024, again under the guidance of Professor Shashank Joshi sir, we had written this editorial. It will be published in this JIMA. The three pillar, spirituality, science, and skill. When we talk about Mahakumbh, we need to pranam those three rivers, Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati. So Saraswati is not that much, we can see Saraswati. Similarly, yes, we are giving importance to science and skill, but not that much to spirituality. But it is time, just one day before Mahakumbh, when we are organizing this webinar, we need to acknowledge spirituality too. This 3S is very important. In this article, we had given emphasis on the lessons of Rama. It is not only about just breaking the Lord Shiva's bow with his physical strength, but also we need to understand this symbol of overcoming different internal barriers. It could be ego, it could be ignorance, it could be attachments. We need to understand that. So spirituality and the dimension of Mahakumbh, when we are talking about the combination of spirituality, science, and skill, we need to also acknowledge the combination of karma yoga, gyan yoga, and bhakti yoga. And with that, again, I want to respect all the physicians, because all the physicians, they are actually practicing this in their clinic. Still remember my professor Ardhendu Sinha sir, when I was intern, I was just making one round with him in Archikor Medical College. So that time, one patient was lying in the bed, stool being over, stool full float, everything was there. We were very much, not willing to go to the patient. Sir understood that. So that patient, the blood pressure was not measured. He had not rebuked us. He took the sphygmomanometer and take the blood pressure and tell that man, how are you? What are you doing? In a very simple way. So actually, we doctors are practicing these principles. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So we are actually practicing the equanimity, the law of equanimity. From our teachers, we learn this. So once again, I thank you for all your attention and who were there. And today we have a great meeting. I am just want to stop screen sharing, and I am sorry because I think 3 minutes more times taken by me, and now we are really interested. We are really privileged to have with us. I think Dr. Krishna Sheshadri sir has joined. Yes, sir has joined. So we are really privileged to have Professor Krishna Sheshadri sir with us, and he will tell us a very important topic, that is traditional Indian lifestyle and its role in disease prevention. So over to Professor Krishna Sheshadri sir. Again, Professor Krishna Sheshadri needs no introduction. He is a giant in the field of endocrinology in the country. He's a well-known speaker across the world. So now this stage is yours, sir.
Just give me 1 minute. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to share my slides. Just give me a minute. Can I send my presentation to one of you because I'm not able to share this?
Please, sir, please
Let me
send.
try one more time. Just give me one more time. I'll see if I can join this. Just give me a second. Just let me. For some reason, I'm not able to share my presentation. Just give me a minute.
Sir, should we guide you out?
Screen, camera. Okay, one second. Screen. Zoom has disabled option. A single cap. Entire screen.
Yes, so you can select your entire screen and then share.
Okay. Okay. Then I will just do that. Just 1 second. I'm just going to. Can you see my screen now?
No, sir, not yet.
Present to a meeting. 1 second. Can I see? Okay. Can you see me now? See this now?
No, sir. Sir, after clicking on the entire screen, there will be another share option. So you
1
need
second.
to click on that share
1
option
second.
again. Okay.
Image from file. Screen. Entire screen. Okay. Start.
Yes, sir. Now your screen is visible. Just open your
Perfect.
PPT.
Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. We can see your PPT perfectly. Just request you to make it full screen.
I'll do that.
Okay, sir.
Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry. So let me go to the first slide. I'm sorry about all this trouble. Okay. Thank you very much. It was my privilege to listen to that beautiful discussion on the Bhagavad Gita and I'm always interested when people talk about chapter 6 because chapter 6 is the way where Swami talks about life and Yomam Pashyati is in fact the crux of the Gita and Indian life, right? Those who see me in the world and who see the world in me, I protect them. And of course, just to paraphrase the last quote that was made, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, meaning the accompaniment of knowledge and wisdom. I think the people who translated that in that particular thing did not use the word Vinaya. The word Vinaya is actually humility. And that is indeed the Indian approach to knowledge and lifestyle. We don't put down anything. We accept everything if the truth is present in it. And it is the way we do things. I just wanted to share this particular photograph. If you can see, this is Swami Vivekananda in Chennai. And 1 second. And Vivekananda's saying from the Kathopanishad, Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varannivo Bodhata, arise awake, that many of us are familiar with. While Calcutta was his and West Bengal was his Janma Bhumi, his karma started in Tamil Nadu. In fact, when he came back from Chicago, he was deceived by the Maharaja Setupati of Ramanathapuram at a particular place. And even today, the rock that he did meditation is now a world famous monument called the Vivekananda Rock. So I just wanted to sort of bring in this relationship. And I know that we are in the throes of the Mahakumbh, and it's important to understand that where our ancients lived, and their connection lives on through the scriptures, through their science, through their works. While the purpose of the Indian life was dharma, we understood that the sharira or our body is the way to dharma. Sharira madhyam kalu dharma sadhanam. Many of you must have seen this in the as a motto that the All India Institute of Medical Sciences even carries today, right? So while we have dismissed our ancient lifestyles and ways as, to put it bluntly, mixopathy, the rest of the world has woken up to our ways of life. This is the current global market, a $4.5 trillion market that is predominantly built on adapting our way of life. If you look at this carefully, whether these are various different kinds of yogas, various kinds of food, various kinds of fasting, you will see that we have done this before. While we call it a lifestyle, they call it science. And whether I'm not going to get into a discussion on whether our ancients knew the science. I think our ancients were aligned with nature and understood the need to be aligned with nature, and developed a lifestyle that was aligned with it. And that is all there is. Today, we need. They took a leap of faith based on what they observed. Today, we need validation for it. Let me drive this home a little more carefully. Look at this one. Cardiac coherence is the new turmeric latte. Our own remedies with turmeric, ginger, and milk is now a Starbucks bestseller, right? And I like this particular tweet that said how the West works. Steal knowledge from ancient Indian cultures, rename it, claim it as your intervention, attack native tradition as superstition. But I don't blame them, I blame us, because we have fallen for this. We have not looked at the fact that the Madhava School of Mathematics had found Fibonacci sequence much earlier than Fibonacci itself. That the Gregorian calendar is curiously aligned to the Shaiva Siddhanta, the Surya Siddhanta findings. That we actually knew that the time it takes for the light of the sun to come to the earth. We just dismissed it in our need to disown ourselves from our past. But whether you like it or not, every member of your family is at least taking one Ayurvedic product. This is the projected growth of Ayurveda market, and therefore this is something that we can't live without. Just to finish the pranayama story, this is the global evidence that is accumulating for pranayama. This is a fantastic article that was published in Frontiers a couple of years ago that looks at both an fMRI as well as an anxiety and emotional scores based on pranayama, showing significant improvement in patients with anxiety because of pranayama, but also mapping their fMRI. This is a need of the hour. We need to start looking at our ancient practices, and instead of ditching them, align them with modern science, align them with modern tools, and learn how to go with it. Let me tell you a couple of things from my own journey, and I'll bring this thing in. This is the Aruna Prashna. I've talked about many of you have heard me talk about circadian rhythm. This is the Aruna Prashna, and it talks about Sarvasva dhanu bhuvanadihi tasyaha paka visheshanaha smritam kala visheshanam. Very interesting. When I first used this, I did not understand this particular prashna. It says that the course of time that is understood through the changes brought by the heat and those of the rays of the sun. When I was my interest in circadian rhythms is well known to people. But I've always wondered, we have light impulses that hit the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Why is the Aruna Prashna talking about heat? But now we know, and since 2018, we know that the heat receptors, sensors in our skin, have suprachiasmatic projections. So clearly, whether they knew about the existence of these receptors or not, the Prashna is not wrong. It's actually right. And we are seeing these validations over time and again. Where else do we see this more than understanding the cosmic rhythm that we are part of? This is the wording that is there in CERN. Every subatomic particle is not only performs an energy dance, but also is an energy dance, a pulsating process of creation and destruction without end. For the modern physicists, then Shiva's dance is the dance of subatomic matter. As in Hindu mythology, it is a continual dance of creation and destruction, involving the whole cosmos, the basis of all existence and all natural phenomena. It's very interesting that for millennia, the Orion constellation has been used to measure time. There are many people who still think that the Gregorian calendar is flawed, and we should go back to a constellation-based calendar. So tomorrow, when we have Makara Sankranti, it is basically a constellation change. But how many of us know that the Orion constellation is present in almost all civilizations, and Shiva is known as the great hunter? That is why the Rudra Prashna says, Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya Namaste Rudra Manyuto Deshave Namaha O Namaste Bahubhya Mudate Namaha. Protect us from your arrows. Because Shiva is a great hunter. And this Nataraja icon, which is so popular in Tamil Nadu, and tomorrow, by the way, Arudra Darshana in Chidambaram, it celebrates Nataraja's dance. The Orion constellation with the Arudra Nakshatra is the crest of the Orion constellation. And can you imagine that it is very interesting that Ujjain, which is where Mahakal is situated, was the zero longitude of many, many years. And Nataraja, if you look at this, the Orion constellation is Arudra. And 1,000 years ago, there was a supernova in the Orion constellation that led to the iconography of Nataraja being very, very popular in the Chola Empire. But one of the things that we know is this energy sleep cycle, that there is a significant association between light or darkness and production of energy and the rejuvenation of the body. This is the energy sleep cycle. That photosynthesis is associated with light, rejuvenation is associated with dark, and this is hardwired into us. And therefore, we have circadian rhythms. And these circadian rhythms in humans are well known. This is not a talk on circadian rhythms, but what I'm trying to say is that we knew about this. And these circadian rhythms are not just oscillations, but our feeding, our mitochondria, our energy. And remember, two things that our mother gives us, a mitochondria, and she gives us our rhythmic, our gut microbiota, and these are both circadian. There's a mitochondrial expression of mitochondrial rate-limiting enzymes are all circadian. So if you're eating in the middle of the night, you're basically working with a mitochondria that's asleep, right? Those enzymes are not expressed. And that's why unusual time and energy leads to problems. But we know that even the gut microbiota are rhythmic, that they oscillate. The gut-brain axis oscillates. It is in sequence with time. There is a rhythm, there is a balance, right? And did the ancients know about it? You bet they did. This is Ayurveda. Remember that we have Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and the variations of this. And of course, most of us make fun of it. But if you look at this carefully, they talk about the diurnal variations of the doshas. Aho is day, ratri, that is why Aho Ratri. So if you see the morning is kapha, therefore Danta Sadhana is done in the morning, wake up early in the morning, right? And then you will see eating is higher, is midday. In fact, for those of us who think that these doshas are some cooked up nonsense by Indians, very interesting study that was published some time ago that actually looked at genomic correlates of Prakriti groups, right? That there are genomic signatures of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Just because we don't know enough about them, I think we should not dismiss them. Let me talk to you about something very interesting. So how did the ancients work with the diurnal variations? So they told you to wake up in the morning, right? Certain activities are presented for the day, certain activities are presented for night. They made you eat small amounts. For example, ghee would be taken in the day, but not at night. There was an old saying that even in a Raja's house, you would not get ghee at night. They would take fermented foods in the morning, but not at night. So they would not have dahi at night. So two things were happening, not just at diurnal changes, but also in the seasonal changes. You will find that various places in the Ramayana, various places in our this thing, you would see how the diet changed during the seasons. You ate seasonal food. For example, in Karnataka, you'll find the Avalaki Utsava occurring the next few days, and you'll find that those seasonal feeds were all celebrated. But importantly, during times of the rain, during times of the sun, the food varied, and that is published. Those of you who read the Ashtanga Hridaya, which is probably the closest we have to a more comprehensive text, will understand these. A lot of times, many of us, especially nutritionists, try to take from this, but not the entire thing, and end up creating havoc. But understanding these and then working with it and building it into our learning is probably more important. I'll just show you how this works. Now, you look at the Indian text, Danta Sadhana was very important, very interesting. That there are at least 6 sticks that are prescribed, not only to brush, but also to chew, right? And the most common, of course, is neem, right? What we did was look at is there some correlation? We were the first to publish data on gut microbiota and diabetes in India, but I was thinking of something interesting. Let's look at oral microbiota, because we had just done some work showing that if you that there is a great amount of periodontitis in diabetes, and just scaling reduced A1C. So I talked to my friend Padma Shrikant, and said, you know what, let's do something interesting. People use a neem stick. Let's see if a neem stick actually reduces changes oral microbiota and reduces inflammation. So we actually had patients, and we gave them a neem stick. We did some things to protect the enamel, because one of the things is that if you use them without an enamel protector, it does destroy the enamel. Many of them actually, it's not just using it, it's also chewing onto it. But what we showed was, and this is Rubini Anbalgan's work, that the phyla that was present in diabetics, right? This had a higher amount of monocyte chemoattractant protein. Over a period of time, from a more parasitic, and this is 3 months later, from a more parasitic way of this thing, you would find that this is what it is. That the oral inflammation came down significantly. A change in the Aeromonas aerophila and other bacteria. I don't want to get into the details of this, but just to understand that maybe they were not scientific, but certainly there's a curious alignment to science in this. I'm not going to go too much into it, but let me go on to food a little bit, and of course let's talk about Gita. Fantastic talk that I heard, and the 6th chapter again I think is something that's amazing. And Swami talks about the path to yoga, and he talks about yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnad bodasya, yogi bhavati dukkha. meaning everything in moderation. Right? They don't talk about extremity. That do things in moderation. So it is very interesting that this moderation becomes an important part of life. We have moved away from eating to live, to living to eat. We are the only species that eats for pleasure and eats for and kills for pleasure. But the Gita is just an extension of the knowledge of that day, right? If we go to the previous stanza, Swami talks about how to eat. He talks about natyasnastu yogastinaha chaikanta manashankaha na chatvi swapnashilasya jagrato naiva charjanaha. The Shata Brahmana talks about this as is well known. If one eats and the food is within one's capacity, then it protects him and it does not hurt. That which is more than the capacity harms him. That which is less does not protect him. Shankara in his Bhashya for this particular verse quotes the yogic shastras. I'm not able to find the original thing, but Shankara is a meticulous source quoter. So he says, how do you eat? And that's the thing on the right side. He says, half of the stomach, ardha sabhya jhananasya, tritiyam udakam cha, vayo sancharanitu, chaturtam avaishyaseshat. Meaning, drink water. There must be a third of your stomach should be water. Drink water first. The person who drinks water before food is a yogi. The one who drinks between madhye is a bhogi, and one who eats after is a rogi. So a quarter of your stomach should be water. Half of your stomach should be food, and a quarter of it should be empty for air to circulate. Right? I remember my grandfather saying, when you eat, get up when you know that there is space for one more meal. Fantastic. Right? And this moderation, the amount of food that you eat. And remember that they would not eat food without offering. So the food was chishtaha. And there are only 2 offering mantras in the morning, Satyam Tatvena Parishinchami, and the evening, Ritam Tatvena Parishinchami. So clearly, they only ate twice a day. And remember, I talked about the circadian rhythms. They would eat before sundown. That evening mantra, Sandhya, sleep. In fact, in the Mahabharata, it is very interesting that when the Pandavas went before they met Draupadi, when they were staying in the house of the Brahmana, they would bring the evening food, they would eat. Then when the sun goes down, they would put the mattresses and they would lie down. And they would tell the stories of the day, and they would fall asleep. So early and 6 to 7 hours of sleep was what they got, but they would get up very early in the morning. Brahma muhurtaya uttasya. Get up in the morning, think about your life, is what the Ashtanga Hridayam says. Manu says, Brahma muhurtaya uttishte, chintaya atmahitam. So think about what is good for your soul. But remember, what is good for your soul necessarily needs to be good for your body. So this is what the Gita says. Look at what Charaka, the importance of sleep. I always say sex is overrated and sleep is underrated. Charaka Samhita talks about sleep. Nidrayattam sukham dukkham, pushtik karshyam bhalabalam, vrishta klibata jnanam ajnanam jivitam nacha. Happiness, misery, nourishment, emaciation, strength, weakness, virility, sterility, knowledge, ignorance, life and death, all these occur depending on the proper and improper sleep. And why is that? We never knew why sleep was important for many years, until this fantastic experiment by Husserl et al. That showed, and she did some great work. She actually had a rat to sleep under a confocal microscope, and she showed that during sleep that your brain shrinks to a third of its size, allowing the CSF to go down deep and clean it up. No wonder the Ratri Suktam talks about sleep as no adyayasya vayam yavan vikshamahi vrikshena vasanti vayaha. The night gives us her time for us to rest, even as the tree offers its expansive branches for the birds to rest, right? And I talked about it, the time to rejuvenate for mitophagy, for that, the need for a fasted, non-food available time to rejuvenate. I'm going to stop here, but because I think I've given you a little glimpse into this. I'm happy to take questions and join a discussion. I want to paraphrase Kalidasa. Where would we go without Kalidasa? Purana mityevana sadhu sadvamna chapi kavyam nava mithya vadhyam santa parikshan yastarat bhajante muda parapratyena ye buddhihi. Meaning, don't think that everything old is great and everything new is bad. The good, the wise people examine everything, but the fool listens to other people. So without listening to me, let me paraphrase this. Nava ityevana sadhu sarvam na chapi kavyam purana ityavadvayam. Meaning, don't think all that is new is great and all that is old is bad. Even with this, examine what is good for you and don't just listen to what Krishna Sheshadri says. Finally, let me stop being Arudra tomorrow. The source of all movement, Shiva's dance, gives rhythm to the universe. He dances in evil places. In sacred, he creates and preserves, destroys and releases. We are all part of this dance. This eternal rhythm, and woe to us if blinded by illusions, we detach ourselves from the dancing cosmos, the universe in harmony. If anything, the ancients did one thing. They lived in harmony with nature. And I think that's really the message that I want to send. I don't know if you call it science. You can call it by any other name. But certainly, it is a way of life that we should not ignore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your great lecture. I think we all learned from you a lot today. May I have a small comment from Shashank Joshi, sir? Sir, Sheshadri sir, can you please unshare your screen?
I've already done. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
This was an excellent exposition, both Shambho by you and Krishna. I started the context and you took over in Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, as usual, unusual in his very impeccable style, told us, so there's a perfect equipoise. And I think we are all here to celebrate Swami Vivekananda, the ushering of the Mahakumbha once in 12 years. And I think it's time that our ancient practices get an evidence-based piece. One of the seminal papers which Krishna published was a very simple paper of the neem stick and the cut oral flora, how he modulated it. So congratulations to you and Krishna. Both of you all did a wonderful job. And I hope that we continue this entire journey of uncovering the truths from our ancient wisdom, as long as they're evidence-based. And but one thing is very clear, that in the process of healing and happiness, I think, Shambhu, your tips to a practitioner were very prudent and correct, and they had a lot of wisdom in it. And Krishna evolved from science, not just knowledge, but also gave some tips from shlokas and various scriptures of what we should do today. So congratulations to both of you. And as I said, I started the context and we have been able to culminate it. And I'm sure we have very illustrious professors who are joining us for the panel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So thank you once again, Krishna Sheshadri sir and Joshi sir, Shashank Joshi sir. So we'll start today's very interesting panel discussion now. And for the panel discussion, we are really delighted to have with us Cornell Professor Praful Mohan, who is the professor at the Department of Pharmacology at AFMC Pune. He is also a clinical pharmacologist and his DM in clinical pharmacology. So I want to hand over him, and today's panel discussion is on bridging the ancient wisdom with modern medicine. So may I request Professor Mohan to introduce your panelist and let's start today's panel discussion.
So thanks a lot, Dr. Shambhu. Uh, I hope I'm audible. Can somebody confirm that to me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So thank you. It's been a fantastic listening to the wise words from very illustrious speakers. And when this opportunity to moderate this session came to me, I was having some kind of a trepidation because this is kind of an abstract topic, and the context and confines of this topic cannot be easily defined. But when I look at the panel and the panelist, I was really thought that it was my privilege to engage with such illustrious leaders. We have with us today Dr. Nirmala Rege and Dr. Nilima Shisagar, who are pharmacologists. And then we have Dr. Anuj Maheshwari, Dr. Tripathi, and Dr. Sham Sundar, who are eminent clinicians who do not require much of introduction. And their eminence is, I mean, known to all of us. So, as Dr. Shambhu has informed us that the panel discussion is about bridging ancient wisdom with modern medicine. So, what I'll do is I'll kickstart the discussion with each member of the panel and maybe pose a poking question to them, and then we see how we go about. I purposely have not kept it too structured so as to ensure free flow of ideas and to draw, cogent lessons. So, what I'll do is I'll introduce each panelist as we go on, because let's say if I introduce all the panelists now and one of the panelists is speaking at the end, then the pertinence to audience is lost by the time the I would say the opportunity for that panelist comes to speak. So the order of, I would say, the order of, the speakers in the panel, as I'm approaching them, is not necessarily in their order of eminence or age or knowledge. They're all doyens in their own fields, and we look forward to have a lot of, gainful insights from all of them. But let me start this with Dr. Nirmala Rege. So before I go ahead and pose a question to her, I would want to give a brief introduction without costing without having a big time penalty. Dr. Nirmala Rege is a very eminent and famous pharmacologist uh, whose name is known to almost all and everyone who has studied pharmacology in whatever I would say capacity, maybe as a UG student or a PG student. And of course, to PG student, she is also known as a very ingenious teacher, if I may use the word. Her eminence flows out of the fact that she has published multiple books, widely read, widely acclaimed. She has about 125 publications to her credit and more than 40 research awards. Currently, she is working as professor of pharmacology as IRA's Lucknow Medical College. She is also professor emeritus at pharmacology department at State GS Medical College, and she has been a past president of Academy of Health Professionals Educators. So her core areas has been in pharmacological research, pharmacological teaching, and also medical teaching as an activity. And she was also the faculty for State GS Medical College, Fimer Regional Institute. She has been principal investigator for multiple Ayush and ICMR projects. As I have told already, multiple publications and books to her credit. So, Dr. Nirmala Rege, if I may attempt to ask you a question, ma'am, most of the times you have been asking questions to us, being our teachers. But let me take this opportunity to put, go on the other side of the table. So we all know that you have worked extensively on developing plant products into modern medicine avatars. Can you briefly summarize your experience, maybe with reference to maybe one particular plant or one particular plant product, and kindly identify 2, 3 crucial bottlenecks that you had to face in your journey during which you were studying the plant products and trying to bring to fore their pharmacological properties in the context of modern medicine. So, Dr. Nirmala Rege, please.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mohan, for that introduction, and thank you, Dr. Shambhu, for inviting me for this particular session as per and this CME. Uh, uh, I will. There are very few products in which, as you said, that I help in developing them into modern avatars. Most of my work is related to validating the claims about those products in Ayurveda, or finding out the mechanism of action, the pharmacological way. But the one I would like to talk about our journey with Tinospora cordifolia, and I owe all this research, whatever I've done, and I've assisted my guide, that is Dr. Sharadini Dahanukar, who had learned Ayurveda. And this is the one we went in a very keeping the Ayurvedic, whatever is mentioned in Ayurveda, keeping those things in mind, we processed it. And our pharmacological knowledge, it helps in developing it. It is with Dr. Dahanukar and Dr. Urmila Thakte, who is an eminent pharmacologist, clinical pharmacologist as well. So it started actually from Ayurvedic concept, because this is the plant which has got multiple actions and multiple uses mentioned in Ayurveda, and it is very difficult to say why or to explain all these things. But the property of this plant is a rasayan, and Dr. Dahanukar tried to decode this rasayana concept. So actually in Ayurveda, that rasa means the primordial tissue, means all the tissues, they start from rasa, and ayan is a path or the way. So this rasa dhatu, that is the tissue, it influences all other tissues. So whenever, whatever the drug improves the quality of the rasa, would strengthen the all tissues. That was the first thing. And the second thing, when we looked at Charak Chikitsa, it was mentioned that all these rasayana are used for Vayastapanam, Ayurveda Balakaram, and Rogapaharanam Samartham. So Vayastapanam is the anti-aging, Ayurveda Balakaram is increasing the longevity of life and strengthening the learning and memory. And Rogapaharanam Samartham, we concentrated on that. That is the removal of the diseases. Now, what we did with her disease, we had a concept, because everything starts with hypothesis when we do. So our hypothesis was how this happens, and that time the psychoneuroendocrine immune axis, we were learning a lot. So with some preliminary experiments, we thought that these rasayanas are stimulating immune cells, which is responsible for the cascade of events, which is responsible for this multiple action. So we went in developing various preclinical models, as we all our pharmacologists do, various models of infections induced in animals, and we found that the animals treated with Tinospora cordifolia, they survive more. And then we took the serum of these animals to see whether this particular drug has an antibiotic-like effect, but we didn't find. And therefore, we concentrated more on the immune cells. We did lots of in vitro and in vivo studies to see the effects of PMNs, polymorphonuclear cells, macrophages, monocytes, peritoneal and alveolar reticular endothelial system. And overall, we found that they increase the phagocytic and intracellular killing activity. We didn't concentrate much on the T cells, though we did few studies on the T and B cells. And then with this, we decided to go for a human models. And the model we selected that time was obstructive jaundice, because Dr. Ravi Bapat, who was an eminent gastroenterologist surgeon with us, was working. And we have done some studies with the patients with obstructive jaundice, and we found that they are immunosuppressed, especially their polymorphonuclear function is very, very poor, and there is a decrease in the percentage phagocytosis. So we kept that as an indicator. And we treated these patients. We did multiple studies with them. And we found that there is a difference in the mortality. The more people survived, as well as there is a better percentage phagocytosis of their polymorphonuclear cells. And with this concentration of number of studies, we found there is a decrease in endotoxemia. We found in vitro studies, they increase the Kupffer cells. The most important thing we found that they activate the PMN cells or the macrophages, that there is an increase in GM-CSF. And we established our dose response relationship. We did the studies on INU. And after this, we went to another disease. Dr. Mahashul, he's a chest medicine physician working with us that time. And we studied the patients with on anti-tuberculous drug. And we found there also, because you know the macrophages are very, very important for in case of tuberculosis. So we found there is an improvement in clinical symptoms. There is a reduction in sputum conversion time. There is a hastening of the radiological recovery. And we also did studies with Dr. Rajan Badwe at Tata Memorial Hospital in patients with breast cancer. And that time, CMF, that is a cyclophosphamide, methotrexate, and 5-fluorouracil. They were the chemotherapeutic agents of choice in those days when we did the study. And we did, when the cycloid analysis, we found there is a reduced neutropenia. And all these studies we went with the help of pharmaceutical company. There was a pharmaceutical industry was with us, which helped us in developing the formulation. It was a whole aqueous extract we used for all these studies, and that was Merin. And then it was taken over by Woka. So this came as an indigenous immunostimulant in the market, marketed by Woka. And this particular Tinospora, which fascinates me because I keep on reading about it, and there is so much of work which is going on. Even we have done some studies, and we have found that it is it helps in improving the gut barrier also. We have seen that it helps in decrease that antibacterial resistance, it is useful in that. It has anti-cancer properties, which we have not, though we have not studied. And currently with Dr. A.B. Vaidya's team, we are working with Dr. Vikram Gota at ACFEC in solid cancers to find out expanding it to what we have seen in breast cancer, whether it helps as an adjuvant for the care for the patients who are undergoing chemotherapy. So that is how that is a one particular plant. And there are, if you Google with our names, you will find all these references, what we have done. But if you ask me the bottlenecks in this particular journey, our bottlenecks were mainly finding out the right model and going ahead with it. We didn't face much problem except for the determination of the dosages, because it is very important when you decide, if you are extrapolating the doses from the animals to human being. Of course, when you are working in the Ayurvedic product, you have an advantage because there are doses which are mentioned in Ayurvedic textbooks, and you can extrapolate directly from those human dosages. But when we are using the extracts, and we have to keep that in mind, whether we are using the dose of the extract, how we are going ahead that, or crude extract. That is one more thing. But more than that, in another study I have found that where multiple plant products one is using, that standardization and the quality control is very, very important. How you can, because when you are mixing multiple plant products, it is very difficult to get that fingerprinting changes as you, all those phyto ingredients, and they have very common phyto ingredients. So you can't have the unique fingerprint like you get for the chemical products, our drugs. So whenever you do HPLC or HPTLC, more you mix, you can't compare with the original one. And one has to be very careful, and you have to have phytochemist, good phytochemist with you for the standardization and quality control. And when you want to do the placebo control studies, the making of the placebo is very, very again important. To make a placebo for a plant product, is a very difficult thing unless you are using the capsulated form, because their color, their odor, they can influence. Means sometimes the people give us placebo, and we have seen in one of the study that the placebo contained the active ingredient, because when we went into details of that, we learned that they have extracted all the active ingredient. That's what they felt, and that remaining mark was given as a placebo. But in fact, that placebo had active ingredient. And luckily, we used to do HPTLC of any given product in our laboratory. So we did that, and we could point out that there is an active ingredient. We did animal studies prior to the clinical studies, and we found that there was a response in those animals given placebo. So yeah, we told them, and then they have to improve it. Otherwise, that clinical study would have been disaster. And third thing is, you have to be very right in the beginning, because when we developed Inospora cordifolia, the regulations were simple. Now you have to decide beforehand whether you are going for the Ayurvedic drug, whether you are going for the phytopharmaceutical, or whether you are going as a US botanical. And the data which you have to generate for all these three things is different. So you have to be very clear in the objectives, and that could otherwise, when you proceed with one pathway, there could be a bottleneck. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for bridging your rather long journey. We know that you have sort of shortened it quite a bit, and I'm sure the journey must have been, and I'm sure it is still continues, being rough and with a lot of gradient. So, I'll invite the audience also to pose a question, if possible, by way of chat. Can the virtual administrators ensure that we get the questions, if any, from the from the audience?
No, not yet. Not yet. You please carry on the panel discussion. We can take the.
All right, fine. So, ma'am, just one question from my side. That the effort of bringing traditional medicines or plant products into modern medicine fold is clearly a multidisciplinary effort, and one person may not be able to make a huge difference. Of course, the passion and leadership are the pivotal things which you have been providing, of course. But in your opinion, is there any one technology or a platform which you would say or opine on that if that increases, if that percolates down, like in case of therapeutic drug monitoring, we say that if we have more number of HPLCs and LCMS, then the cause of TDM will get furthered. So, if I may use this analogy, in terms of development of traditional medicines, do you feel that there is any one technology which needs to be, upscaled or made more pervasive, so that efforts like you have been doing can be undertaken by multiple people?
No, as you rightly said, that it is a teamwork, and each member is important, because it is not the quality. Again, I'm emphasizing on the quality of the product, because it is not the quality at the end. It starts from how you have collected that particular plant, with plant specimen, leaves, which season, what is even for Tinospora cordifolia, the thickness of the stem, for that matter. Everything is important. So you can't rely on only one technology which will help you. But it is always a joint collaboration. That what you have said, it's more important, I feel. Continuous discussion, meticulous planning, and how you are going ahead with that. At each and every step, the person is important. The cellular techniques, the pre-clinical models, and the clinical studies, of course. So without clinicians, you can't do. Means only pharmacologists can't do. So all these three the people, means these people, as well as pharmacy people, phytochemists, everyone is important for botanists. everyone is important.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. There's one question on chat which we have received from Dr. Avinash Kinikar, and he is asking that are extracts of Tinospora curcumin safe compared to Rasayan described in Ayurveda as far as liver functions are concerned? So
Yeah.
maybe a brief comment on that.
Yeah, recently there are which type of extract, that is very important, because Ayurveda doesn't. I have seen many pharmacy people using the extract like petroleum ether extract and all. So Ayurveda doesn't advocate those type of. In Ayurveda, if you look at the extracts, they are aqueous extract, hydroalcoholic extract to some extent, and there are some alcoholic extracts which have been used for some formulation. So you have to do the studies. But recently, if you go and do the literature search, you will find Dr. Abha Nagral's the article has appeared. I think two she has published, and there were the case reports that there has been some injury, and which is immune related, and because of the Tinospora cordifolia, the way the patients have used. Everyone has used different extract, and all of them didn't use the same this. So you have to be very careful. When I'm saying the drug is immunostimulant, you can't use the drug the way you want it. At the same time, one has to do the studies to see, because the Tinospora cordifolia is something which is advocated in Ayurveda for young children also, from infants as well as elderly people. And the usage is so much. So actually at the national level, the studies have been taken to find out what is the usage, how many patients are getting liver damage, because the drug is advocated in Ayurveda for the liver conditions. So, and say, and we know that for modern medicine also, there are drugs when they are producing effect, they are producing adverse effects as well. So just based on pure effects, we can't say that this drug should be banned or something. But at the same time, we should, and we clinical pharmacologists should develop that data. No one else or foreigners will not come to help us. We have to develop our own data. And for that, the government and Ayurvedic institutions help is required, or collaboration is required.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. In fact, you have left this last comment as a linker for me to move on to the next speaker, and who is Dr. Nilima Sagar. Ma'am is a leading clinical pharmacologist of national eminence. And I think beyond her actual involvement in clinical pharmacology, her probably the most important stellar contribution still remains in inspiring people like us. You know, it's a long career which we have been seeing from a distance, and very inspirative. Her energy levels are, I would say, exemplary, legendary. And Madam has been the National Chair of Clinical Pharmacology at ICMR. Uh, I mean, the list is rather illustrious and long. I'll just confine to very basic and very, important milestones in her journey. Currently, she is Professor Emeritus at Maharashtra University of Health Sciences. She has been a member of, rather chairperson of Drug Technical Advisory Board Subcommittee on Fixed Drug Combinations. She is a member of FITO Pharmaceutical Mission of Government of India, a member of multiple societies, multiple committees of under WHO, and she has been acting Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, and she has headed the Clinical Pharmacology Department and multiple colleges in Mumbai. Of course, she is also has been the president of Indian Pharmacological Society, having almost 300 publications to her name, and I'm sure the count is still not over. It continues. Like ma'am. So, ma'am, thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks a lot for being here. What I would want to pose a question to you again, reversing the roles. I've been answering questions which you pose to us, but let us have a role reversal for a change today evening. And I would want to ask you that almost all ancient civilizations have their own indigenous medical system. Some of them which died with the civilizations, and some of them continue to grow. And they've been integrating themselves into the modern medical system in varying proportions. For example, we find that Chinese traditional medical systems have been quite well, I would say, rather well incorporated into modern medical system. So, do you think that in our context, this integration has been optimally and satisfactorily done so far? Has it happened? Are we there, or we are not even attempting it? And as a continuation to that diction, can you suggest some policy initiatives which the government has taken or the government needs to take so that the work of Dr. Rege and scientists like her, comes to fruition more fast? So the mic is with you, ma'am, now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. At the outset, I would really like to thank Dr. Shambhu and yourself for this panel discussion. And I greatly appreciated the presentations from the earlier speaker, Dr. Shashank Joshi, and also others. It was a very enlightening experience for me, and also linking today's this webinar to Swami Vivekananda's Jayanti and also to Kumbh Mela. Great opportunity to consider the integrating indigenous or our traditional medicine into modern medicine. And thank you for that opportunity greatly. When we heard today morning's presentation, I was also reminded of the fact that something which I read, and I thought that's important for us to see, that they said that what is science to technology? One can consider spirituality to religion. So one can think that knowledge and wisdom is something which is so crucially important. And I thought that Swami Vivekananda also commented that all knowledge builds on facts and experience. And on that, we should be building our reasoning. So with that comments from Dr. Swami Vivekananda, I would just like to put my thoughts together in three kind of interconnected points. One is a bit of a historical. The second is what happened. We can connect it to historical. What happens in a clinical situation and how this whole thing can be taken forward for drug development or using the indigenous knowledge for that purpose. I don't want to go back to millions of years or thousands of years of Ayurveda, but just coming to more recent history of pharmacology in India. Dr. R.N. Chopra, all of us know, 1940s, when he was considered as father of pharmacology in India. He had at that time itself identified that the reason for non-response to quinine could have been due to quality of quinine. And in his famous paper that he wrote, and he sort of kind of guided the government at that time onwards, that there should be studies on Ayurveda and to see how that can be actually brought into modern medicine. This is what he actually stated way back in the 1940s. We are all somewhat aware also of Rustum Jal Vakil, and I'm sure clinicians here would remember that, about developing Rezapin from Rovalfia. Excuse me. And he actually carried out clinical trials. That was published in British Medical Journal and very well recognized papers. And he was also sort of recognized by the American Society. With that kind of a background, and you mentioned about the Chinese system, we all know about Dr. Yu Tu, who received the Nobel Prize for her discovery of artemisinin. Maybe I can just digress a bit to say how they have integrated the Chinese traditional medicine into drug development. We are all sort of familiar with what she did. And when they were finding that the artemisinin extract that they were using were giving variable results, then they looked at the Chinese traditional medicine and they realized that if they have a cold water extract, then that is when they get the active ingredient. Of course, we have to understand that they had the full government support, and there were nearly some 2,000 scientists working on it, which is what led to the Nobel Prize. In our country, if we look at, I would say that the modern medicine was a bit skeptical. When patients used to ask modern medicine clinicians, we are taking Ayurvedic product, they would not be very supportive of that. But when at our institution, when we were doing our epilepsy clinic with therapeutic drug monitoring, we had found that there is a good deal of drug interaction. And those are the papers that we published, and that is of Shankapushpi interacting with anti-epileptic drug phenytoin. And this was a story of a patient whose we thought that we had adjusted his blood levels of phenytoin. But as he came to the clinic with breakthrough seizures, we asked where we thought he was not compliant and so on. But when we did his levels, his phenytoin levels were low. And that's when he said that he was taking this memory enhancer, Shankapushpi, which was being advertised so widely during exam times. So that is how we had identified that there could be a good deal of drug interactions with modern medicine. They were, of course, then on several other papers which were also published. So while people, patients use, not necessarily always consulting the practitioners, and this question which was asked about use of tinospora and the liver toxicity, and Nima very nicely elaborated on that. So this just brings out that it's so crucially important to see what the Ayurvedic literature says about indications and contraindications to use of Ayurvedic medicines. So what Dr. Abha Nagral had shown was, and which is so evident, then later on we all realized that it was probably patients who already had some immune, autoimmune or other diseases. They were the ones who suffered from tinospora liver toxicity. And these would have been in Ayurveda probably mentioned as cautionary not to be taken. The other thing that happened during COVID-19 is that a very large number of people took immunomodulators because of the huge sort of benefit, and that there was nothing else to do for COVID. So it was also the large number of people that they took, and the very long time that spora was used, which is what resulted into that kind of liver toxicity which was seen. So when one tries to consider Ayurvedic formulations with today's context, these are some of the problems that can come up. That is, you can have it interacting with modern medicine and the Ayurvedic medicine not being used correctly. So when, as we move along, there was the other always a bit of concern for all people who are trained into modern medicine and scientific thinking, was that the quality standardizations for Ayurvedic medicine was something which was, as described in Ayurveda, was not something which was standing to the test of today's time as we understand chemistry and phytochemistry. That is when there was a considerable amount of effort from all over the world to see how we can do the standardization and have the extract being standardized. A bit back into history again, we all know that CDRI, the Central Drug Research Institute located in Lucknow, they carried out a very large number of studies, but they found that as they prepared the extract and made them more and more purified, in fact, at some times the efficacy was lost. One of the other things that was noted in Ayurveda was what is called in Ayurveda Shodhana, and that is detoxification of a Ayurvedic plant. This is something which is very important, and some very good scientific studies have also demonstrated this, as we know. When we were students, we were told that a toxic plant substance like aconite, it can be detoxified by boiling with cow urine, which is what is described in Ayurveda. And it was identified at Zandu that this was probably as a result of enzymes present in cow urine which degraded the toxic components of the aconite extract. Later on, there have been many other studies of plants like Arjuna and also for Vallataka, how this detoxification process can be used, can actually reduce the toxicity by doing animal study. But with all this, still there was not enough of phytochemistry being worked out, although this was quite a lot demonstrated by animal studies of the extent to which toxicity occurred. So this all actually led to the government initially at US FDA and maybe at the EMA, and then even in the our Drugs and Cosmetic Act to come up with phytopharmaceutical idea. That is where a single ingredient doesn't have to be like a modern medicine, like a new chemical entity, not a single ingredient, but a sort of extract of the plant, which may be containing more than one active ingredient, but it should be well standardized. And this well standardization, the actual rules, regulations describe that there should be at least 4 components of it which are identifiable by using HPLC. Further, there is a great deal of description as to what kind of toxicity studies need to be carried out and what kind of clinical trials to be done. The US FDA has also defined botanicals. Nima just mentioned that you have to decide as to which way you will follow, whether you will take it through the Ayush route or using Ayurvedic product as it is described in Ayurveda, or whether you would take it as a phytopharmaceutical when you're doing a new drug development. There's also a third aspect, that is the nutraceutical. And sometimes the industry needs to accept nutraceutical because that's easy to do, and it's quite easy to sort of commercialize a product as a nutraceutical in USA and also in India, because it doesn't require such huge amount of studies. But then you can't claim that this will be useful for treatment of a disease. Then it is mainly the claims that are that it is a health promoter. So with this kind of a background, the CSIR has set up the phytopharmaceutical mission for developing phytopharmaceutical product. And there are some 10, 12 substance plants, which they are very actively working on it. What, however, I noticed being as a member of that mission, that there is a great amount of work that is being done in India on the botanical identification. And we know from Ayurveda, and Nima also mentioned about part of it, that depend on which season you collect, which part of India you collect, what soil is there. Needless to mention today's use of pesticides. And there is also, these are being grown also in farms so that they can be developed as required. So we all know about the Google story where, eventually the supply itself a bit ran down because the way it was described in Ayurveda, one could not really have it collected over a long period of time as was described. So the great amount of botanical work and phytochemistry work that has been done. What I think is that here is a great opportunity for pharmacologists to be very actively involved in this phytopharmaceutical mission, and the work which is being done by institutions like IIIM Jammu and CDRI, and also from Hyderabad Institute. There, the animal model that one develops need to be, I think, linked to the kind of benefit that are seen in Ayurveda. Not necessarily always use the ones which are used for modern drugs, but they should be actually developed depending on what is expected as described in Ayurveda. Similarly, when clinical trials are needed to be done, these also must take into account what is described in Ayurveda, develop the clinical trial protocol accordingly. So I'll just mention here that there is a systematic review and analysis of the clinical trials in botanicals done in USA. And what they find in these clinical trials is that there are problems. And we heard Nima mention about the placebo. There are some of these studies which are double-blinded, randomized studies, but some of them are open label. And then there are always questions about the actual validity of those kind of studies. And when the double-blind studies are done, it's important to see that the placebo is matching and the code is not broken. And then the studies are done as per GCP or good clinical practices, as we today call them. Also, it is important that you take as per modern method the adequate number of sample size, because otherwise you end up in not being able to show the difference. We are considering integration of traditional medicine into modern medicine. So as Praful just correctly mentioned, that in China, this is very much a part of their considerations now. So I was in China, and you'll be surprised that the way the Chinese system of medicine works, there was a full building, and on the first floor were the Chinese physicians who were actually examining the patient, taking history, and then they were prescribing the medicine. And on the ground floor was their pharmacy with all various herbs being there in their raw forms, and the formulation was being done there, and it was being dispensed. So this is the way the traditional medicine in Chinese system is being used. There's also a systematic review which has been done again by Chinese people, but they have collected the world literature, and they have tried to see as to how many countries are involved in integrating the traditional medicine into modern medicine. And this systematic review, they found out that there are some 3,000 and odd papers over 10-year time, so about 30,000 papers. Annually, about more than 3,000 papers are being published. And they also said that 30% of these papers were from China and only 5% were from India. But we should not feel discouraged, because the good thing was that out of these papers, more citation was for Indian papers compared to Chinese papers. So I think maybe we could feel happy that maybe the quality of the Indian papers were better than the Chinese. But this was a very good systematic review, which sort of told us the kind of gaps that although although the government of India has a great amount of push now for integrating traditional medicine into modern medicine, as pharmacologists, as clinical pharmacologists, and as researchers, we need to see how we can contribute by doing good studies which are well validated and using products which are well standardized, and where we can be more sure about the validation. Only then one can consider that one can put this into public health system, which at present we still have a divide between the two pathies. And that is the phytopharmaceuticals expect to overcome that, so that allopathic or modern medicine people can prescribe the phytopharmaceutical, because that would have gone through the more research methodology that we all know about. So I think these are some of my observations and comments. And I would also just like to end up by saying that we heard a lot about Gita, and we said that Shambhu mentioned that many of the times the students face this Siddhanti Mama Gatrani, Mukhacha Parishushati. So that is that, I'm feeling really, really low in energy. But then on the other side, the Gita also tells us that karmanneva adhikaratse ma phaleshu kajachana. So I think commitment to particular activity and taking guidance from teachers and the world leaders is something which will no doubt help us to achieve our objectives. And I once again thank for having me to participate in this panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your sagacious inputs. Very quickly, I would just want to ask you one question, if you permit, and that is,
Sure.
I think the maximum integration of traditional medicines and modern medicine, which we see, is actually in the pharmacy shops. Every pharmacy shop, you will find modern medicine, kept in the shelves alongside nutraceuticals. So, it may appear, at least it appears to me, that the proliferation of nutraceuticals is probably low cost, low frills way to bring into traditional medicine into the market without them having to undergo the rigors of the regulated approval process for modern medicines. So, in your considered opinion, ma'am, I'll request a very quick comment from your side. Should we encourage this kind of practice? Is it coming at the cost of their formal integration to the modern medicine, or
Yeah.
that kind of the shelf integration, if I may say, should we sort of allow it to happen?
So there are three aspects to it, if I may just quickly say. One is the commercial aspect, the other is the scientific aspect, and the third is the social aspect. So you will see that the patients always want to have something, कुछ तो दे दो. If the doctors say that आप सब ठीक है, कोई किसी की जरूरत नहीं है, they are bit crestfallen and dissatisfied. And the commerce always come into picture. If you look at the US FDA botanical, from China, there were 500 applications, out of which only 2 US FDA approved some years back, and then that is increasing. And comparatively from India, there were not many. Of course, it's all quite a lot depends on the finances available. But I think that from an Indian science perspective, we need to see that we do in a very good scientific manner studies, so that sometimes it is done to substantiate or validate observations from Ayurveda, but often developing a new drug which is well standardized. There's also sometimes as also mentioned by Nima, there is repurposing also. I mean, what is described in Ayurveda can be further taken forward, because the diseases described in Ayurveda, the wordings and the symptoms are though quite well aligned to modern medicine. Diagnosis is something different. We have many more methods of, now diagnosing. We still haven't touched on, which is, I think, the time is not there for us, is the importance of artificial intelligence and machine learning. What that is going to, where that is going to take us when we talk about developing drugs from Ayurvedic sources. But I'm sure that will add a completely new dimension and level to all the work that we do. Thank you.
Right, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am. And thanks a lot again for leaving us with a linker to the next speaker. That is the diagnostic, or I would say the evaluational approach to a patient in modern medicine vis-a-vis the traditional medicine systems. So it's an honor and a privilege to have on board Dr. Kamlaka Tripathi. Sir is a very eminent clinician, and he has been professor and head of the Department of Nephrology in Banaras Indian University. And suffice to say, I think one of the biggest markers of his eminence is his recognition by the government of India, who conferred Padma Shri on Sir. And Sir has had almost 300 publications. He also holds a Guinness Book of Records in 2013 for enrolling maximum number of diabetes mellitus patients on a single day on a single site. And he's been examiner for more than 10 national universities. Have been project officer, research officer for ICMR funded projects for almost 30 years now. And he is a fellow of Royal College of Physicians. I'm at a real risk of missing out some of Sir's, I would say, accolades and achievements, because the list is really long. But I'm sure Dr. Tripathi will pardon me on this. And Sir, if you are there, can I ask a question, a teaser question to you? Is Dr. Tripathi there?
Sorry, I couldn't listen. It was off for a while. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sir. So I've just asked, I'm going to ask you a question now. I was just trying to inform the audience about your eminence. So, though, of course, that requires no, I mean, a lot of people are aware of your eminence and sagacity. But so just to broaden the context of the discussion, I would like you to pose, it's not a question, maybe call for your inputs, that how do you feel that the approach to a patient when it comes to us, how it has undergone a change from the traditional medicine systems to the modern medicine? As a very basic level, as I understand, we are trying to become more objectivized about everything. We want to know the exact measure of the blood pressure, exact measure of the blood sugar, maybe quantify fever, and then treat accordingly. So was it like this before? पहले भी ऐसा ही था क्या? And the concept of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and Nadi, which have been touched upon by previous speakers, is there a room, or should we incorporate all these systems formally into our assessments of patients as we go on? And were the previous approaches, which were probably more subjective and experience based, better than what we are doing now? So it's a little open-ended question. Pardon me for that, but I'm sure we'll all get benefited by your inputs.
In Banaras Hindu University, there is a two faculties, separate Ayurveda and modern medicine. And in Ayurveda faculty, there is a Kaya Chikitsa, means the internal medicine. And in that particular department, there is a one complete paper which talks about which is modern medicine. The examiners are from the modern medicine side, and the thesis and also is co-examined by them. So there is a system of teaching exclusive. Many times CCIM doesn't recognize them, say, no, this is wrong. But we, right from the days of Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya ji, who introduced the system, in 1980, 1928, when the university took as a recognition of Bachelor of Ayurveda Medicine or Master of Ayurveda and Surgery, then at that particular time, there were teachers from modern medicine who teach exclusive modern medicine, the biochemistry. The teachers who from pharmacology would talk modern pharmacology, but the student will learn it, may not practice, may practice. So that was the reason. And since then, there has been a tradition of making diagnosis. You said rightly. In Charak Sanghita also, in Ayurveda, there is a Nidan Sthanam, Sharira Sthanam. So they talk first about the biology, the cosmic biology, the eternal biology, the cell biology, and having completed that part, then they talk of Vata, Pitta, and the Kapha. So that's what we call loosely Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. This is from the part of the genesis of the Kapil Muni Sankhya Yoga. It's a small part is represented in Gita. The Sankhya means how this body was constituted in the mother's womb and how did these supernatural powers, the light, the energy, the source, they contributed into the constitution of the body. And with this, because imbalance between the three, you got the disease. This is called samprapti in Ayurveda. Like we have the natural course of the disease, we have incubation period, then we have a progression of the disease, and then we have intervention and the result. So Ayurveda is a very brilliant clinical science. So it is a subject of very intelligent people. See, in one of the professor of Ayurveda, whom I met lifetime, he studied first the Vyakaran, the grammar. He did his post-graduation. He did his another post-graduation in the Jyotish, astrology. Another post-graduate, Acharya means what? Then he studied literature, the Sahitya, the Karma Kand, the Mimamsa, and then he decided now this is the time I must read Ayurveda. So that is the prerequisite of Ayurveda. Therefore, what happened, most of these Vaidya who were initially, they would pick up, the Nadi Gyan is not a pure Ayurvedic part. This developed during the period of Tibetan, during the Buddhism period, because that time the border were opened from the Takshashila right to the Nalanda. There were people going here and there, and lot of description in Ayurvedic diagnostics skill has been taken from that particular literature. So Jivak was who also had a skill of surgery. He was a Buddhist. And like Jesus Christ, Buddhists also had that miracle. Miracles were done only by the Buddhism during Buddhism time, by the Jesus Christ and all those period. There were that sort of change which would occur, touch the person, take away the pain. But this was not present in the Ayurveda. So taking the pulse, looking at the pulse, the temperature, the abdomen, the eye sign, all these signs have been described in Ayurveda. And because they have been described in Ayurveda, they are the clinical interpretation in the Rog Samprapti. So if you want to prescribe a pure Ayurvedic medicine, you need to have a pure Ayurvedic diagnostic skill. You cannot ask modern medicine man to make a diagnosis of status asthmaticus and ask the Ayurvedic person to do it. It could be other way around. It could be sometime detrimental also. For example, patient may have a left ventricular failure, and an Ayurvedic physician might be thinking of tamak shwas. The shwas means the patient has a severe exacerbation and obstruction of the COPD, and the COPD is deteriorating. And because of this deterioration, patient have trouble. So diagnostics should be made separately. Accordingly, drugs should be prescribed. And then what Madam was talking before also, in Ayurveda also there are three different type of the drug preparation. One is called Sattva medicine, Kashtaushadhi, where it excludes a plant tradition. Second is based on the chemical compound, organic compound, means heavy metals, mercurials, shilajit, parad, gold, abrak, all those which is also used in the Ayurveda as a stimulant. And these are the drugs are used for a different class of people. And third is the tamasic, the one which is used with the animal preparation. And these animal preparation are usually made for the warriors, those who go for, they get the war injury, they get the emergency and for those people. So according to your body constitution, the drugs are to be prescribed. In Ayurveda, there is a description. Because people do not read completely. So, Charak Sanghita, you need more than the Gray's Anatomy. So you need completely a discourse on it, and each and every chapter to be read with that spirit. So what I feel that you need a Ayurvedic diagnostic way, constitution. According to the constitution, then they have the Chikitsa Sthan, Nidhana Sthan means diagnosis, then pathological process, Vikriti part, then they have also according to the Samprapti of the disease. And then having done all those, then you write a prescription. And then you select a drug, choose a drug. If this is followed, Ayurveda will certainly grow. Most of the people do not follow this. That's one thing.
Right, sir. Thanks for your inputs. I just wanted to pose a question to you, sir, and to seek your opinion about this. So, as you said that even Ayurveda, the way it is practiced by Ayurvedic physicians, is not optimally, backed up by the knowledge resources, which is as important. So, in that sense, it is again sort of half cooked, if I may use the term. So, do you feel that there is some scope of exposing the modern medicine students, MBBS students, formally as a part of their curriculum towards these concepts of Ayurveda? Of course, the entire text cannot be taught to them. So, will it be good? Will it help them in incorporating these aspects when they become practicing clinicians? Or we should allow both the systems to grow separately and then maybe integrate at a later date?
Few area is certainly important in that sense. And like degenerative diseases, osteoarticular diseases, the diseases which do not kill the patient but make a lot of incapacitation. See, we have accountability to the society. When you have a modern physician, this person has a lot of bindings on the social bindings, legal bindings. So he cannot just go out of break all the things and practice medicine according to his will and wish. But there are certain areas where these drugs could be. For example, those patients who have a chronic irritable bowel syndrome, and you have done the exclusion that there are no neuromuscular disorder, there are no serious metabolic component, patient does not have a structural deformity, patient doesn't have a disorder of the mesenteric plexus, neuromuscular mesenteric plexus diseases, then you use lot of adsorbent. These are the not absorbent, adsorbent. Then they regulate the bowel, make the bulk, set up the absorption, and take away detox like
So we have lost your voice, it seems. So we appear to have lost your voice. Yes. So I think there is certain signal issues at the end of Dr. Tripathi, but nevertheless, thanks for his inputs, very sagacious inputs. Uh, Sir, are you there?
I think you can move towards the next panelist
Yes.
first. Yes.
Right. So next, I would want to go on to Dr. Anuj Maheshwari. He's
can you
currently
listen me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure. Yes, sir. Hanji, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. It was disconnected. So what I mean to say, you need a different way of diagnosis also. But for modern physician, there is a group of diseases which is non-communicable and non-metabolic, degenerative. You can prescribe Ayurvedic medication, and there are known method of action for these drugs. These are the non-toxic drugs. These are the Kashtaushadhi. They are not heavy metal, and they have got their own positive scientific role. So these drugs can be used.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your sagacious inputs. It was really a pleasure to hear you, sir. And we have heard a lot about your eminence, but thanks a lot. It was first time I was hearing you in person, though virtually.
Thank you.
Right, sir. So now I would want to go on to the next speaker, who is Dr. Anuj Maheshwari. Dr. Maheshwari is currently Professor of Medicine at Hind Institute of Medical Sciences. Again, a very eminent person. He is the governor of Indian chapter of American College of Physicians, also the president of Asian Pacific Society of Hypertension. And he has been recently elected as the president-elect of RSSDI for next 3 years. And Sir has got a lot of accolades and awards at by multiple societies. And he was, I think, one of the greatest, I would say, award which was granted out on him was the Outstanding Community Service Award by Indian Academy of Diabetes at Mumbai. So, sir, if you permit, I would want to pose a teasing question to you, and that is Dr. Anuj there?
Yes, sir is there. Sir is there. Sir, you
All
have
right. All right.
Yes,
Okay.
I am here. Hope
Right,
you can
sir.
listen to me now. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are muted. Right, sir. So I would want to ask you, sir, that what was the traditional place of a healer in ancient India? We call them doctors now, but essentially we were all healers during the traditional ancient time. We see that doctors today are being blamed for being too commercialized as doctors. Is it good? Is it required? Should we need to have a middle class path? Should we be more community oriented? So, and how do we place ourselves in the society? So, these are certain aspects I would want you to delve upon. Again, as we go along, the context of discussion is getting broader and broader. So, but I'm sure we'll learn a lot from you, sir, on this.
Thank you, Dr. Praful, for inviting me in this meeting. Thank you, Shimbu, for giving me this opportunity. I have got an opportunity to listen uh, multiple speakers in this meeting, although I was occupied in another meeting also, but in between I was getting, so I was keeping the track after the Krishna Shishadri, and I was really very happy in my mind. This is the one of the best transformation in the medical science what anybody can and expect anytime. What are you saying about the place of the healer? It's really a very good question and very tricky also. Since from the ancient time, if we talk about the India, since from the ancient time and till the right time when we are in the practice, doctor or Vaidya, whatever you call, has always been equated to the God. And whenever we equate somebody with the God, we come into the sacrificing mode, not for from ourselves, but we accept all sacrifice from the other side. I don't know uh, God is sacrificing or not, but whatever the examples we have with the God, may it be Lord Ram, may it be Lord Krishna, we have listened a lot of stories of the sacrificing, and always it is expected that because doctor is equated to the God, and doctor is the living God in this world. So he should do all sacrifices, may it be related to the money, may it be related uh, to the his routine lifestyle. If you are going to sleep, still you should be ready to serve the patient. If you are going on your traveling, then you should be available to see the patient. If you are busy with your family member, still the patient expects he should be given the preference. These kinds of the things we expect, we see in our day-to-day life that it is expected from a doctor or Vaidya, whosoever, whatever you. But in current scenario, world is changing, and you cannot take us back into the timeline. We cannot go back to the 1,000 year or 2,000 or 5,000 years before. If 5,000 years before, when our civilization was growing up, when at that time we were living in caves, we were wearing the leaves of the trees, we were using the medications from the in the form of the plant leaves or plant extracts. If we expect the same thing right now, many a times it won't be so practical. Many a times people will find how can it be possible that one can spend his life with the wearing the leaves. So these are the things which makes a person to think that hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are
Hello.
audible.
Yes, 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 yes. So these things are there which makes a person always in the trouble, whosoever is working as a clinician or as a healthcare worker or as a doctor. If we really wish that current modern medicine is going to be complicated and complicated, and it needs the best brain should join this medical curriculum. If we really wish that best brain should join the medical science, then we should always make it lucrative like other profession also. Earlier, what was happening? Earlier, uh, a son or daughter of the Vaidya was becoming the Vaidya. Always, it was a family legacy which was being followed by the generation to the generation. So there were some family values, there were some family traditions, there were some traditions of the sacrifices which were being followed by generation to generation to the family. But nowadays, it is being a competitive atmosphere. Anybody can become doctor. Anybody can choose to become the doctor. And doctors are coming from the same society which is working, where we can see that a lot of people are coming in other job profiles, a lot of IAS are coming from the society, a lot of bank persons are coming from the society. So the society, whosoever having whatever the shortcomings or whatever the impurities in the form of the corruption, in the form of the other things, they are not, you cannot find that a doctor who is becoming, suddenly he will become the saint. If he is coming from the same society, he will be having the similar kind of the mindset what the other family members were having. Of course, we many a times we try to change them, we make them, but in our medical curriculum, do we really have enough time to give values to our medical students? Do we have enough time to teach them? We really don't have enough time out of the curriculum, out of the busy curriculum, out of the syllabus what we are teaching to them. So these are the things because of which lot of gaps are coming up between the people's aspiration and expectations and the performance of the medical practitioners in the form of the doctor. So definitely we cannot go back. We have to progress, and we cannot allow only to be this profession go into the people, those who are already practicing medicine. Everybody should be allowed to come in and join this profession. And we should always be ready to provide all kind of the development opportunities or progress opportunities in this medical profession also, as we provide in other professions. Still, the medical profession is bounded by so many limitations and litigations. Many a times we are not supposed to tell that this medication is good, this medication is not good. We are not supposed to tell that whether these guidelines are good or not. But otherwise, those people are not medical sciences. They are taking the name of our organization and our society. Last many months, I am seeing that one video is running into the social media, who is telling lot of wrong things about the American College of Physicians, that it has recommended this much for the diabetes, it has recommended this is the cutoff for the diabetes, which is absolutely wrong. But nobody is there, and we cannot come to the same level of the person who is giving the blames to our and our society. And people are telling everything. Now the social media is available, and this has made a platform where anybody can say anything about anyone. So these are the liberties which are in the hands of the people, but at the same time, when they are going into the hands of the wrong people, it causes a lot of harm to the society, and it is becoming the reason because of this conflicts which is arising between the medical professionals and the society many of the time, especially when the patients are not being survived despite the best efforts of the doctors and clinicians. So this is the thing which is coming up with the gradually developing world, and we must understand that we continue to provide the opportunities of the same opportunities of the growth to the medical practitioners, what we are providing to the other professionals and other uh, uh, people, those who are working in other parts of the science and other parts of the livelihood. So these are the things what I really wanted to. I think I must be. I have been able to give you certain answer of your question. So if you still find that something is being lagged, you can ask me.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot. Your your inputs were very frank and emphatic and clear, crystal clear. So, what I personally draw from your inputs is that maybe, if not commercialization, then some amount of professionalism is in order. It is in order for the sake of development of our field and for the sake of patients. But probably we need to work on our individual and collective communication. We also need to tell the outside world that if they expect saints and sages as modern doctors, then somewhere down the line they are going to get harmed. So health is a commodity which is the most costly commodity, and society will have to pay some price for it. But yes, we must have our moorings in the value systems, and I'm sure a lot of us have that. Almost every one of us has that, sir. But yes, frankly, sir, thanks a lot for putting such a complex, I would say, question so emphatically across to us. So, thanks a lot for this, sir. And now we go on to our last speaker for this panel, and he is Dr. Shyam Sundar. Dr. Shyam Sundar is the distinguished professor of medicine at Institute of Medical Sciences, BHU Varanasi. He's been a prolific writer. He has got 674 publications to his credit. That's more number of pages than most of the books would have, and with a H index of 107, which is rather big. He's been contributing to Harrison's Principle of Internal Medicine, Davidson's Principle of Practice in Medicine, two fundamental books which almost every UG student and PG student has read. Sir has also been the past president of Association of Physicians of India and Clinical Infectious Disease Society of India. We all know him as the leading force behind the elimination of leishmaniasis, and he is also ranked as #1 scientist in the world in this field from 2013 to 2023. So, if you permit me, sir, I would want to pose a little teaser question or initial question to you, and that would be that please sort of inform us briefly about your journey on tackling leishmaniasis and finally getting to eliminate that. That is one. Second is that over the past maybe 20, 25 years, the pandemics from unknown microorganisms, which were not very commonly known, appear to be increasing in frequency. So it appears to be cat and mouse game, wherein we develop some vaccines for a particular microorganism and then something else comes up. And a lot of times the origins of this new microorganism comes from the animal kingdom. So besides leishmaniasis and its success story, I would also request you to please tell us, how do we harmonize our existence, that is the human existence, with other life forms, so that this kind of cross infection, if I may use the term, do not take place. Dr. Shyam Sundar, sir, please.
Thank you, Professor Profil. First of all, I must thank you and Dr. Sambhu for inviting me to be part of this webinar. I'm also very delighted, Dr. Nilima Shirsagar. With her, I have learned so much, and I have worked with her in some of our projects. So I think, let me tell you the story of visceral leishmaniasis in India, because I think Indian contribution is profuse in this field, and the earliest description of an epidemic of Kala-Azar or visceral leishmaniasis, the name itself says the Indian connection, Kala-Azar, 200 years ago, in early 1825 or something like that. Then the first description of a big epidemic is in 1858, where in Assam, thousands of people died of this disease, although it was not at that time known what it is, but the description was fitting into Kala-Azar, and the mortality was more than 90%, 95%. So there was no cure. Then the physicians, modern physicians, the modern medicine was growing, and people started using tartar emetic, a trivalent antimonial compound. Unfortunately, the side effect was so much that about 50% of the patients who took tartar emetic died. I must tell you the India connection. Professor U.N. Brahmachari in 1922 published a paper in the Journal of Medical Research, where he said that, and he described first time urea acetopamine, a pentavalent antimonial, which had a cure rate of more than 90%. So from the 90% death to 90% life was the difference what Professor U.N. Brahmachari did in the city of Kolkata. And then it was in use, and it was
at around 1937, it was replaced by sodium stibogluconate. So far, so good. However, in the new, and as I must tell you that in late 50s, the disease almost disappeared from India because of the extensive DDT spray against in the National Malaria Eradication Program. In early 70s, there was description, especially from Bengal and Bihar, the outbreaks of Kala-Azar or Vissel leishmaniasis. And then, of course, the drug was available. But in mid-70s, it was some of the workers, they noticed that the patients are not responding as well they should. And this story went on. And so much so that in 95 onwards to 2000, many workers, including our work, we that only 35% patients are getting cured by this drug. About 8 to 10% patients are dying because of the cardiotoxicity. Because what happened, that initially the dose was very small in the earlier days. Almost 10 to 12 times more drug was being recommended and was used. And this probably led to severe cardiotoxicity. So in early 90s, we were really helpless. There was no drug. If a patient failed antimonials, sodium stibogluconate or stibonate, these patients, very few of them would get a drug which is called as pentamidine, which was imported from Europe, and the death rate was very high. Fortunately, a very renowned physician from North Bihar, Professor Mishra, he described amphotericin B deoxycholate he published first paper in 1991 and then published 3 papers. He described this drug, amphotericin B deoxycholate, initially when it was sold as fungizone. And this was a really saving grace. Unfortunately, this drug required 1 month hospitalization. You have to give 15 infusions every alternate day. So I was, I had become very interested. I was born in North Bihar, in Muzaffarpur. So we established a non-governmental organization, totally free treatment to patients with Kala-Azar, including food and etc. But what happened that initially we had 10 beds, then 20 beds. So you can imagine, we could treat only 10 patients in 1 month, 10 patients only with amphotericin B deoxycholate. And that was very frustrating. In every OPD, every weekend I used to go to Muzaffarpur. In one day, in one Sunday, I will see 40 to 60 Kala-Azar patients who required amphotericin B, and our capacity was only 10. Fortunately, over the years, we tried to increase the capacity, and today we have 80 beds. But so that was a very frustrating time when you have no bed, you have a drug which is very expensive, limited. These patients are so poor, they cannot buy the drug from the market, or they cannot have, have a treatment in a private setup, private hospital. Anyway, so this was quite frustrating. And, as a physician who is interested in this disease, and we had already found out, we made a breakthrough. Then when we got the diagnostic set right, so we could have a diagnosis of a Kala-Azar in 10 minutes by a very cheap rapid diagnostic test using RK39 antigen. So I actually initially used ketoconazole, which was claimed by some of the eminent workers in India that it works against Kala-Azar. Unfortunately, in our hand, it did not. Fluconazole, another triazole. Then we combined etovaquone with fluconazole. These are all oral drugs. We wanted, there was no no clue for a injectable drugs. So far, everything has been injectable in leishmaniasis, whether it is antimony, pentamidine, or amphotericin B deoxycholate. Then sitamakvin came. It was again an oral drug, but again it failed because it was toxic. So in 1996, we came across a drug which is known as miltefosine. It is an oral drug, first oral drug against leishmania. It was initially developed as an anti-cancer drug in Germany. But it had in vitro and in vivo, evidences of very effective anti-leishman drug. We started with a small, dose escalation trial, and in 1998 we published first paper in the Lancet of its efficacy, and in 2002 we published a paper in New England Journal of Medicine where we had shown that if we use this drug for 28 days, 50 to 100 milligram daily, this drug would cure 94% patients. And this was actually preceded by another paper in New England Journal of Medicine in 1999 we published. Then, of course, this drug was then, a Kala-Azar elimination program was launched in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh altogether. And this drug was with K39 rapid test being the quick diagnostic, followed by miltefosine for 28 days. And it went on, but miltefosine has had its own issues, and some of the signs of resistance started appearing. You have to give it for 28 days, so the non-compliance was very high, and then it could not be given to women of childbearing age group unless they practice contraception for the duration of treatment in 5 months, and that meant that you have to be very cautious because this drug was a potentially teratogenic, high incidence of GI side effects. So there were some negative points about this drug. At the same time, we came across liposomal amphotericin B, and this drug, and there were several preparations, amphotericin B lipid complex, amphotericin B colloidal dispersion, but I think liposomal amphotericin B, and the first description came from, the clinical description came from a drug named as Ambisome, which was produced in USA, in California. And this drug had a very high safety profile, very good safety profile. And this was actually initially developed, these liposomal drugs initially were developed for the treatment of fungal infections in HIV infection, severe HIV infections, where fungal infections were very common. So we started working on this. We initially worked on amphotericin B lipid complex, and then colloidal dispersion also, and Ambisome. And this Ambisome had an excellent safety profile. We started, and we saw that a 3.75 milligram of total dose of the drug given over 5 days would cure 89% of the patients. This was followed by, my desire was to develop a single dose treatment of visceral leishmaniasis or Kala-Azar. So we used 5 milligram single dose Ambisome, and this paper was published in 2002 in British Medical Journal. But see, looking at the cost of this, we are really disheartened that, but because the cure rate was only 91%, and it was not, not acceptable at that time, looking at a target product profile of 95% or more. Then we went on and we increased the dose to 7.5 milligram, no effect, again 90% cure rate. Then we lost heart and we stopped using this drug for development. In 2007, WHO, with our publications, they discussed this with the Gilead Sciences, who were the manufacturers, and they offered to supply the drug at 8% of the cost. So initially the cost was $200. It was available at $16. So we became again interested. There was a gap of 5 years. And then we became again interested because now this drug was becoming relevant for our economy. Use 10 milligram dose, single dose again, for this, and it was a big trial. 304 patients were treated. We had a cure rate of around 96%, 95.7%, and the competitor was amphotericin B deoxycholate, where the cure rate was 96.3%, so hardly any difference. So WHO in 2010 recommended this drug. The good thing which happened was that the company, in their benevolent effort, they offered this drug free of cost to the Indian subcontinent. And that was, I think, one of the greatest move. This paper became a game changer. Then in the elimination program where miltefosine was there, it was replaced by single dose ambisome, 10 milligram, in all the three countries, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. And in 2023, and there was a massive impact of this single dose. And there is no time so that I could explain you why. And then in 2023, Bangladesh became the first country in the world to announce, to be certified as have eliminated the visceral leishmaniasis in Bangladesh in 2023. In the same year, they were using all our instruments, diagnostic and treatment. And in 2023, again, India also achieved the target of elimination in all 633 blocks of the country, and which is now maintained. And the number of patients, say in 1992, would have been about 800,000, 600,000 to 800,000. And in 2023, it was 522 patients all over the country. And including Bihar, Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, and Jharkhand. So in 23, we did achieve the elimination. 24, we have maintained the elimination. And 25, I hope, and the figures are going down. In 23, it was 522 patients. This year, in 24, it is around 300 patients. So we have actually been able to eliminate this disease, dreaded disease, I should say. And today, you'll be happy to know that of all the 84 beds that we have no patients. We get one patient in 2 months. So I don't want to go ahead. The story is long. I'll stop here, and then I'll come to your second question. Yes, I think we have to be very cautious, and the human and environmental interaction has to be, noticed, because I'm sure this, at least I don't believe that this came from Chinese laboratory. I think it came from a wild, and it got into human beings, and now, and this has not been proved as well. So I don't think I would blame Chinese laboratory, and we have to be very cautious. And if we can, like in leishmaniasis, if we are not very cautious, if we are not, there will be another outbreak. And we can have another 8,000 or 1 million patients. So this is what I wanted to say. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I just want to tell you that Dr. Nilma Kshirsagar has a great role. She produced an indigenous liposomal amphotericin B. But I think because of the bureaucratic, although I'm telling in public, but I don't care, because of the bureaucratic, environment that we have, or we had, I don't know, I think the things have improved. We will be able to use Dr. Nilma Kshirsagar's, we have done a trial with a very good cure rate of Dr. Kshirsagar's amphotericin B, which is now known as fungizome. Unfortunately, we are not being allowed to publish the results because of the bureaucracy that we have. So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your very sagacious inputs. And personally, it's been a very engaging evening for me of having to engage with all these doyens and leaders of healthcare at various stages. And if I may, if Dr. Shambhu permits, I'll just summarize this entire thing into 5 lines precisely, which so one thing which we need to draw from our traditional source of knowledge are just 2 things. One is passion and second is perseverance. The road to solving our own problems is long, hard, but it is frankly doable. And it's not a single man or single person's do. India has always been a community nation. We have the basic unit in our system has been a family, then a village. So it's always been a community living in harmony with the nature around us. And I think that's what also, at the bottom of what we discuss lies these 2 3 things: teamwork, perseverance, passion, harmony with nature, other life forms, and of course, some amount of bureaucratic ease would also hasten our journey. And while we remain moved into the service to society, we also need to ensure that this entire business of healthcare remains lucrative to people who are working with less lofty ideals and ideas, so that we keep on getting the best of the brains amongst us. And we need to learn a lot from our past. We should not untether ourselves. We should not cut that umbilical cord which attaches us to our path. And there's some fair ground of, I would say, some kind of co-learning or co-training between these 2 areas. Yes, sir. Sir, you wanted to adjoin something, sir?
I just want to say one point.
Sure.
I am a great believer in Ayurveda. And believe me, if I believe in something, I don't treat any patient who has got anorectal disease or who had got, say, things like piles and, fissures. I immediately send them to our hospital, Ayurveda hospital, Charsutra Clinic. My firm belief is that we should develop the Ayurvedic drugs so that the Ayurvedic physicians, they believe in their own drug.
Yeah.
I think biggest killer of Ayurveda, I think, is the non-belief of the Ayurvedic physicians or Ved in their own system. And I think we really, if we can have something like ICH guidelines and we follow the Ayurvedic medicines, and if we are made to believe it, I mean, if we can believe in a publication from USA, why not from India? And why not use the Ayurvedic drugs? So that's my feeling. Thank you. Sorry for.
No, not at all, sir. Not at all. In fact, this is something which we would have missed otherwise. And thanks for pointing this out to us, that we need to have our own rigors in place. And we need not jettison anything, need not leave anything. Only we need to sort of test the traditional systems as per the modern, more translatable, parameters. So, Dr. Shambhu, I think we are at the end of this panel discussion. It's been fantastic. If you, as a coordinator, want to ask any of the panelists any question, the mic is all yours.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic panel discussion, and really a great salute to you also, because as a moderator, you have done a fantastic job. If before we move towards the last event of today's session, if our respected panelists have any final comment, please unmute yourself and tell us about your final comment on today's discussion.
I think this is Professor Shyam Sundar said rightly. You need to make a Ayurvedic way of diagnosis, number one, standardize the drug, number two. But for the research purpose, you need to translate this into the terms of modern medicine, the basic sciences. And if you do so, then you can reach up to the expectation. Because I wrote a review on Sencona, this what dalchini, what we call dalchini. This is one of the we use on our food preparation. And I
Today-
got a paper to review it. And there was almost more than 300 papers from US and neighboring countries. So the amount of work which is being done on this particular plant, which is available whole of the world, like Apple. Apple has, we now today understand SGLT2 inhibitors come from the apple bark. It has the drug has a role, its presence into the apple bark, into the sheet, into the pulp, into the seed, as well as into the peel of it. So many action have been published, but we really do not standardize them scientifically. We need seriously to look at and develop a discipline where all these drugs would be tested on modern parameters, then can be translated into modern therapeutics. Thank you.
Absolutely, Dr. Saab, you have just echoed my views. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Any comment from Reggae, madam?
What I feel is, can you hear me? What I feel is that Ayurveda is our science. And if we have to bring these drugs on the global platform, with, as Sir rightly said, generating evidence using appropriate research methodology. I will not say modern or ancient. It has to be appropriate for that and acceptable by those our peers, scientific peers. We are the one who have to do it. We can't rely on the other countries that they will bring it and then we will use it. We have to take up as a mission, and we have to, as we are doing so much of research on other drugs, our modern drugs, we should also start doing research on our own drugs and at least see to it whatever is mentioned in Ayurveda, whether it stands the test of time today, or there are some changes are required because lot many things have changed. Our technology has changed. The plants are different. We have changed. There is an evolution. The dose may not be the same. So there is so much to do for these things, but it is we Indian scientists should do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, madam. And now may I ask Professor Nilima Kishsagar, madam? Madam told about Professor R.N. Chopra as we know that father of pharmacology, father of clinical pharmacology in India. I think many of us, your student, we can say, we see you as a mother of clinical pharmacology. I think it is a real pleasure to have you with us today, madam. So your final take on this important topic, madam.
Thank you so much, and I'm absolutely embarrassed and with all humility, I must say that I've learned such a lot in today's seminar. I should really congratulate you for organizing this. I was also a bit skeptical as to how we will take this entire webinar, but thanks to you for organizing it so well, and also to Praful for doing a great job of putting the questions to all the panelists. I would say, as has been mentioned by everybody, that to be able to, there is a wealth of knowledge, and our country has so much of biodiversity. And what we have in Ayurveda, that's, we have, as you said famously, that you have to do one experiment to convince yourself, but you have to do 100 experiments to convince the others. So that is, if we have to convince the non-believers, as one may say, we need to really make sure that we put the rigors of modern science. But as has been said by others, take the knowledge from Ayurveda. Well, I think that is something, and I find that the great role of the clinicians who are here, who have so much of great experience, and along with them, with the pharmacology and clinical pharmacology, combining the traditional knowledge, I think the way forward. And as Dr. Shamsundar mentioned, we hope that the bureaucracy in full-fledged support this all and provide us the funding for it, which is where sometimes we, I think, lack giving the insight. So, but thank you so much for this.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. So we have also with us Padma Shri Professor Shashank Joshi, sir. Sir, your insights on today's
I
talk.
think overall, even the panelists gave some very good insights, some original research from Professor Ege, Professor Shyam Sundar. Madam Nilima has been a teacher of teachers. Praful did a great job, Professor Kamalakar Tripathi Anuj, and very, very ably supported by Jyotirmay Paul and Nandini. Shambhu, congratulations, keep it up. And let's do some more science and evidence, which can make some of these things which we discussed today as a level A evidence. So I think we really need to do some good science. And let's hope, as Madam Shirsagar said, that we get little more funding from governmental and non-governmental agencies. But I think we have a will to investigate and do some research questions, and we can move forward on that. So congratulations to you, and I think it is a very good initiative by you, Shambhu, and ably supported by Jyotirmay and Nandini and the entire API group. I think you can do a lot in this year. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you once again, sir. So now may I request our scientific convener of APICON 2025, Professor Nandini Chatterjee, Madam, to have her concluding remarks.
Thank you, Shambhu. And a very good evening to our esteemed speakers, panelists, and participants. We are drawing to a close this enlightening session on spirituality, science, and skill, the triple helix of holistic healing. And we have aptly celebrated the Vivekananda Jayanti, where all our esteemed speakers have merged ancient wisdom with modern medicine and how we can have our paths merged and progress to the future. I take this opportunity to thank all our speakers, Dr. Jyotirmay Pal, Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dr. Krishna Sheshadri, and last but not the least, Dr. Shambhu Shamazdar, for having such an interesting discussion on this profound subject. The panel discussion on bridging ancient wisdom with modern medicine also provoked a lot of thought, and the excellent deliberations by Dr. Nirmala Rege, Dr. Shyam Sundar, Dr. Kamalakar Tripathi, and Dr. Nilima Shirsagar deserves special pranam and mention. Skill without science risks becoming misguided, and science without spirituality may lose its humanity. Spirituality without skill, again, can lack practical relevance. So all the lessons that we have learned from today's discussions, I hope it will help all our listeners and illuminate their professional journey. I also thank all the participants, the audience, who have joined us for this beautiful program, which has been put together and is the brainchild of our dynamic Shambhu. I thank you all, and good night.
Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you. So thank you all. So we will have one national anthem now, as we are celebrating Swami Vivekananda's birthday. So may I request our technical team to start the national anthem, and I request all the delegates who are attending, please stand up for the national anthem. So technical team, please start the national anthem. Any difficulties from the technical team?
Yeah, yes, sir. So should we play that video now?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you all. So
Thank
good,
you.
good night. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Thank you.
So good.
So thank you so much, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to host this session. So with this, we are concluding today's session over here and looking forward to host you
If
again.
you have any video, you can start. Your clarinet, you have
No,
none?
sir, we do not have as such videos till now. Thank you, sir. Good night.